Hey everyone, welcome to the third and I think final episode of GameFace Freestyle. Sam will be back sometime tomorrow, I believe. He emailed me and said he had extended his trip a little bit, but he should be back in the studio for next week. So this is the last episode of our all willy-nilly freestyle episodes.
Although I will not be here next week.
That's right. Yeah, we'll have a guest host next week for GameFace. I'm not going to ruin the surprise for you guys yet, but we'll have someone else. Matt is out on vacation, so...
Although I don't get 3 weeks like Sam does.
Yeah.
So.
He'll just be gone for a week, so we'll have a guest host in here with me next week. Just want to mention Labor Day weekend is this coming weekend. PAX is going on. But I just want to let you guys know on Monday, actually Labor Day, Sifted will be AFK. We are taking the day off. It is Labor Day.
Yeah.
And we are taking the day off, so don't expect a lot of curation going on the site on Monday. We will be there throughout the weekend to curate all the hot stuff from PAX, though.
Well, actually, I'm wrong. I will be here next week.
Oh, well, that solves that.
Never
That's right,
mind.
you're out the 15th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt will be here next week. The week after, we'll have a guest host. I thought that was the case, but... So anyway, Labor Day, AFK on Sifted. Everybody should probably take the day off, eat some hot dogs, hamburgers, drink a couple beers, maybe.
Makes you wonder what huge gaming story is going to break.
Yeah,
Monday morning.
Something will happen. You're right.
And you're going to have to, you're like,
yeah.
I have to put it up, and then it's all gone.
Yeah, well, PAX West is happening this weekend, but honestly, the last couple years of PAX West, it's a great event, but there really hasn't been much information.
Yeah, it's kind of
out.
like, well, I guess what Gamescom's kind of becoming, where it's like,
yeah,
the public gets to touch stuff. You hear a lot of indie stuff, maybe,
Yeah.
but nothing huge.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of the indie stuff that they're going to announce this weekend, the debut trailers have kind of been rolling out over the last couple of days already. So we will be on it Saturday and Sunday, but come Monday, we are taking the day off. I'm actually flying back to the East Coast for Labor Day.
Wow.
Going to do my big fantasy draft with my league that's been going for like 20 years and see my mom and my father and mother-in-law, people that I never get to see because I live all the way out here. So... with that, let's get on with the show. First, Matt, we're going to talk about Battlefield 1. There's an open beta going on right now, if you guys don't realize it, on every platform. Completely free. Just go and download it, and you can play. For starters, some jack-off hacking group hacked the servers yesterday, did a denial of service attack on the Battlefield, or actually, I think it was like EA's entire server infrastructure.
They already did Battle.net the night before, so they moved on.
Ugh. Why? Why do these people get off so much on ruining everyone else's good time? So, Matt, you were actually unable to play it because the servers were down.
Yeah, servers were down when I had time to try to jump in, so I didn't actually get to play it.
Yeah, I jumped on late last night, and I did get to play it. And it was a big problem because I started playing at like 11:30, and I could not quit Sifters. I played until like 3 in the morning. I had to get up at 5. We're shooting the show early today because I am taking off tomorrow. We need to make sure we get the show up for you guys before the weekend comes. So I got like 5 hours of sleep before this, but because I enjoyed Battlefield 1 so much. I mean, I think part of it is that...
At last, a non-disappointment.
Yes, I am not disappointed in Battlefield 1. I had a blast with it. For starters, I think part of it might be that I haven't played Battlefield for a while. I played Battlefield 4 online for review, and then maybe played it like another month after that, something like that. I didn't really get into it like I typically do Battlefield games. And this one I can see maybe the fire being rekindled a little bit. I think really the only issue I had with the game is that the netcode still a little...
Yeah, well, dicey.
Dicey, that's right. So as we said last week, and the game stutters a little bit. I can't tell whether it was latency or the engine. But look, I was in 64-player games, and playing a game with 64 players on a console is
unusual,
a rarity. Yeah, extremely unusual. And so for it to run, here's one thing I noticed, and I've noticed in general over the years, is when I first start playing an online game, sometimes I get lag at first, but then it, like, after a while, it seems to like settle in and play better. I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's any technical reason behind that. But I've found that throughout all my years of playing games, sometimes the first couple games I played will be really laggy, and then eventually, I don't know if I become like the host, or I don't know what happens. In this case, obviously not, because it has dedicated servers. But eventually it smooths out, and that's what happened with this game. I really like it. There are no real twist to it. I guess the first thing I would say is, all the big hubbub about the trench warfare and the hand-to-hand combat, like, it really doesn't change the game that much. Like, you have this crazy bayonet charge where you click the stick and then you literally run full speed with the bayonet stuck out for like a good 30 or 40 yards. It's kind of cool and it's kind of crazy. It's almost like a new version of like the roadie run from Gears of War. Like, it's kind of a new thrust mechanic for first-person shooters I haven't seen before. The loadouts are like huge. Like, I was shocked at how much equipment you got to take out. I have not got to the point where I can customize my own loadout all that much because I haven't unlocked that many things. But I was pretty impressed with the amount of gear that you get. But it has like all the stuff Battlefield has always had. It has a squad spawning. You can spawn in any vehicle you want at any time. When you go to spawn, you can see all the vehicles flying around the map or driving around the map. Just put your icon on it, select it, and you get warped right down into it.
How big are the squads?
6, I think it is.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty big.
I did not like the two-man thing in Battlefront.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that either. It's not enough. It's like just 2 guys. That's not a squad. That's a duo.
Yeah, and you're both probably gonna be dead.
Yeah.
When it comes time. Oh, I like the squad thing because that was always the biggest problem with early Battlefields was like, all right, 5-minute jog back to where the action is, and that squad thing really sort of fixed that to a large degree.
It happens a little bit still.
Yeah.
I still found myself because whenever you spawn, it'll show like the map, and it's really cool actually because it'll like zoom out of the map. You can see everything. You select where you want to go, and then it zooms back in, almost like it's real time. I don't know if it is, but it appears that way. And so it'll have icons, like you'll have your base, and it'll tell you if there's a plane there, if there's a horse there, or if there's an armored vehicle there. And you zap down, but sometimes somebody gets in that vehicle and takes off before you. If there's only one.
Oh yeah, because it's Battlefield.
Yep. So then you're stuck running from. Because the other thing too is that a lot of times it's like a conquest mode. So you start at your base, but at that point, the front,
all the way up,
has been pushed up 4 checkpoints or whatever, and so there's still some of that run for 5 minutes, sniper shoots you in the head, you die.
I miss the old days of Battlefield 1942, where it all first started, and everybody would just try to steal the planes.
Yeah.
And then no one had learned to turn friendly fire off yet, so people would just shoot the plane down before it could take off.
Yeah.
Oh, gamers we're such dicks.
Yeah.
When we don't get what we want.
Yep. And then the vehicles, I really like those too because every position in a vehicle actually has something viable to do. In some Battlefield games, every once in a while,
passenger.
Every once in a while you get.
Everyone else has a turret, and you're just sort of.
You're just sitting there looking out the window. Yep. At the very least, you can always at least shoot your gun out of a vehicle. Right. And I think my only disappointment with the vehicles is the biplane. When you're the gunner on the biplane, you're looking backwards the entire time, and whoever's flying the plane isn't thinking about you shooting stuff.
Right.
They're thinking about them shooting stuff. So they're always trying to get forward-facing to an enemy or whatever. So the only chance you ever really get to shoot anything is if they pass a plane, and you see him for that brief moment, you try to shoot him. But one thing I love about the planes, and this has been a part of Battlefield for forever, is that you can use them as a courier. So you warp into one to start a match, you let the plane fly over whatever point your team's trying to take, and you jump out and parachute down. And then get shot before you hit the ground. But
not really a thing in World War II,
it really wasn't.
World War I, but okay.
And then obviously the other big addition
I can't wait for the Civil War game where you fly around in the little dirigibles and parachute out of those.
The Wright brothers drop you off. And then the other, big thing that people are talking about with this game is the horses. And man, I'm kind of torn on the horses. It's fun and it's kind of goofy. I mean, I guess that's the best way I could put it, but it's also silly. I know you said it historically it's accurate, but when you see it in the context of a video game, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, one thing
the jousting videos and stuff that have gone up look pretty silly.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is silly because
it doesn't look like it really quite has the control down.
The controls are okay. I mean, I wouldn't really fault them for that. But, you have a gun and you have your sword. All you got to do is just pull the trigger. And if you're near someone, it just kills them. So it's, weighted really highly. Also, there was one time I was in an armored vehicle with a chain gun. And a dude on a horse comes running by. And I literally just lit him up for, 30 yards. And he never died. And he went down over the hill. I was like, that's one tough horse right there, man. Holy cow. So
they're bred for that.
I mean, there's a cool element to it. Just seeing a horse on a battlefield with a tank and all this other crazy stuff going on is cool. But it just doesn't really seem to fit.
It was a weird war.
Yeah, apparently so. It makes it for a weird like element of
There's
a
no
video
other
game.
war. I mean, it was like that weird mix of like, old style and new technology, and like there were no Geneva Convention rules yet, so there was, that's why you had all the chemical warfare. I mean, it was horrific. Like it was both like ridiculous and horrific, like every possible part of the scale. So it's a fascinating war if you can get your mind around the really arcane European kingdom politics that led. It's like, unless you understand like all the infighting in Europe that goes back like hundreds of years, like none of it makes sense as to why you would break a war out over this. But it's like, it was really like the last hurrah of like, the hundreds.
We could ride an animal into battle.
Ride an animal, but also the hundreds of years of like, we're, like war is like a gentleman's pastime. It was like, we're going to get our armies and line up and have our little skirmish and maybe take this county or this river or whatever. And now it's like, no, when we do that, like thousands and thousands and thousands of people die now. Like we can't, like it's not, like the squirt guns have graduated to acid, basically. We can't do that anymore.
And like a lot of shooters, campers are everywhere. There's nothing more frustrating than like having to jog like a mile to get to like a point and have some dude just laying on the ground inside a building to shoot you in the head. It's like,
You ever wonder who that guy is and what? It's like, so you're just
have
spending the
fun
whole
doing
match
this?
like laying in a barn waiting for someone to run past you, and then you look, it's like, you got like 7 kills in like a 30-minute game. Like, was that entertaining to you?
Some people only care about their KD. That's all they care about is like their kill death ratio.
That's so weird. When did that start?
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like
because I'd never heard. I was Abby that started bringing up KD. I'm like, what's KD? KD.
Oh, you mean what started KD?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also Call of Duty. I think you're talking about camping.
Oh no, I knew camping. I mean, but like.
KD ratio.
KD ratio. Like all of a sudden, like she's like, "What's your KD?" I'm like, "What the hell, like, Katie Lang?" Like I have two of her albums. It's pretty, it's a weird.
Do you really have 2 Katie Lang
Probably.
albums?
I don't know, somewhere in my CD pile. That I haven't looked at since 1997. But like, I was like, really? Who cares? Like I can't care about my. Every once in a while, like, oh hey, my KD is positive. Cool. It's like that's about as far as I go. My KD is super high in Battlefront. That's about the only time.
It all depends on what mode you play. I mean,
yeah.
If you play Team Deathmatch, your KD does kind of matter. Like, if I were to, say you're like at a basketball court and you're picking players, like taking turns picking players, if I were in that scenario and I was playing Team Deathmatch, I would obviously take the person with the higher KD.
Oh, yeah, but I'm used to getting picked last in those scenarios, so that's cool.
But if you play... capture and hold modes or whatever, like a lot of times you sacrifice your life to take a point or whatever, and in that case, it's more about your score. And you've even seen that with Call of Duty. Like, it's shifted from, like, it doesn't really have kill streaks anymore. It has score streaks. And that was kind of their attempt at mitigating the whole KD phenomenon and people becoming obsessed with their kill-death ratio. So,
because that's the thing is, like, in order for you to have a high one, other people have to have low ones. So
exactly,
it's like, there's no way around the. It's like, oh, you got a low. Well, don't make fun of the low KD guy because that's why you have a high one.
Yeah. Well, you need them in the game so you have the high one.
Everyone's got to die so you can be
so
good.
You can live.
Yeah. But yeah, it seemed like a limited metric because I don't care about Team Deathmatch. I've always been more of a objective.
I actually usually play
guy.
mostly Team Deathmatch.
And like I just this is like how Quake 3 didn't last very long for me because I'm like, yeah, it sure is this. Like I liked when Battlefield and before it Unreal Tournament like introduced the King of the Hill stuff and the capture point stuff, and Unreal Tournament like really held my attention for a long time. I mean, I played a lot of Team Deathmatch on Facing Worlds, but who didn't? So.
Yeah. I always look at Team Deathmatch as like the purest form of a first-person shooter.
I would agree with that.
Because it's basically like, who's the best player at shooting? It doesn't take much strategy.
I'm not, so I don't care. Like, I'll play something else that's more fun for me. But like, Team Deathmatch is probably that is the pure, that is the one-on-one fighting match of shooters. Yeah,
what I find is I probably play 70% Team Deathmatch, 30% everything else. I think if you look in the player counts for most modes, I think that's pretty average. Maybe Team Deathmatch a little lower, but
it depends. I think usually I've noticed, at least on consoles, that like
well, Battlefield is pretty much all Conquest. Yeah.
But other than outside of that, Call of Duty's Team Deathmatch all the way.
Yeah.
Partly because
or hardcore Team Deathmatch.
Yeah. Well, partly because that's the mode that works best.
It is. Yeah.
So. Like
it's easiest to balance as well, as long as you're not your spawn points work properly and people can't spawn camp easily, then
I played a lot of hardcore team deathmatch on Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. Like, that was my favorite mode.
I have one friend that's all he'll play. He'll only play hardcore.
Yeah. Well, because it's also like, at least you know, like, it wasn't some weirdo one-off that you got. Because, like, sometimes you're like, I shot that guy 4 times in the chest and I just fell over dead. But at least in this was like, oh, like one shot basically you win. So it's like, you know,
one burst
who
fire,
got that
basically.
hit, and it just felt a little more, like, oddly it felt a little more fair.
Yeah.
To me.
It also kind of eliminates the spray and pray guys.
Yeah.
Who just like run around like a maniac with their gun going all over the place. Like,
also in those, for whatever reason in that mode, I respected the snipers more.
yeah.
Because if they get caught, it's over.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Basically.
But
so.
also, they're deadly.
Yeah.
Even more deadly than normal, because even if they hit you in the chest with the sniper, you die. Because sometimes, like, if you're playing like in normal mode, they can shoot you in the chest, and you'll lose all but like 10% of your health. And you're scrambling, like, trying to get into cover before he can like deliver that second shot. So I'm having a blast with Battlefield 1. In fact, right now, like, I want to go play it again. Like, I'm having a ton of fun with the game. 64 players. The maps are huge, but I never really felt isolated in the game. Like I said, there's a couple times where you go back to base and you try to get a vehicle and there isn't one there and you're by yourself running. But for the most part, with the way the spawns are set up...
a Jeep.
Yeah, exactly. But for the most part, with the way the spawns are set up and how you can just kind of zap in with your squad or at any of the points that you've already captured, like, you're almost always in the action. It's quick, it's slick.
Can you share a horse?
Not that I've seen, no. I think it's
That's
one
too
man
bad.
per horse.
It'd be cool to be just like hop on a guy's horse and you're like, get off the horse, get off.
Well, it's funny too. Like, I noticed like some people just ignoring the game and just riding around on the horse, like way off of the map, like on a ridge line. Like, you just see the horse like trotting along the ridge line. Like, people are kind of role playing it a little bit, which is kind of cool. But yeah, what I've played so far of Battlefield 1, I'm really impressed with. I highly recommend you guys download. Now the servers are up, like the DDoS attack is done. And they were a little shaky for me last night. But as I said, as I played, they got better. Just having 64 players in a console shooter is there any game last gen that had that? Does Killzone Shadowfall have 64 players?
Maybe?
The launch game for PS4? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I didn't play that long enough.
I don't know. I feel like 48 is as far as they went last gen.
What does Battlefront have the most? What's its max players?
Battlefront is 48,
That's
I think.
what I thought, yeah. So, it's
Or
awesome.
is it 64? I don't remember. This is how important this is to me.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, 48 to 64 is
yeah,
not much of a
I don't
difference.
think it's 64 on console. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's the PlayStation, and I'm playing the PlayStation 4 version. I'm not playing the PC version, and it seems to handle it pretty well. Graphically, maybe not quite as impressive as I thought it was going to be. Looking at the trailers, again, I'm only playing multiplayer. I'm sure the campaign, if there is one, will look a lot better. It's probably, I mean, for a game with 64 players in it, I would say it holds its own with Battlefront. I think Battlefront looks better on the whole. But when you take into consideration you've got another dozen players in each match.
Plus, like, the players are more... I mean, I think one of the things Battlefield has an advantage of is Stormtrooper armor is not that hard to model.
Yeah.
Really, detail. Because it's like, I mean, there's a lot of detail on it, but it's like, those look... The Stormtroopers look really good.
Yeah.
And
they have, like, the sheen on their armor.
The sheen and all, but, like, they're also, like, it's much easier to do CG versions of, objects and pretty much every flying vehicle you've seen in a movie or a television show in the last 10 years is CG.
Yeah.
Like, they do not rent those things and shoot them anymore. It's cheaper to do because, like, you can't tell the difference. And so I think the Stormtroopers maybe, like, ease the load a little bit. Like, if you have to do two sides of, like, fully human people, like, maybe that's harder.
Yeah, I think one thing I would say is, and again, I've only played
also the environments
like 5
are
hours.
pretty busy on Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on there. That engine's good.
It is good. I mean, there was tons of times where, like, I'd be running up to a point, I'd see, like, an enemy, like, armored vehicle or tank coming at me, and I'd, like, dash into a building and think he didn't see me, and, like, next thing I know, kaboom! And all the walls, boosh, come down, and you're just like, oh, snap. Like, I know it's been a part of Battlefield for a long time, but it just never gets old.
Yeah.
And it's also something that you're still not getting in a lot of other shooters, so to me, there's still a lot of value in that. So I'm really impressed with Battlefield 1. I'm having a really good time with it. I won't be able to play this weekend, or I would say let's jump on and play together. I think the beta actually runs for like a long time. Like I think it's like a week. I don't think it's one of those like it's just a weekend and it's done. You might want to fact check me on that, Sifters. I'm not 100% certain, but I do believe it runs for a much longer period of time than the typical beta. So get in there. It's Labor Day weekend. What else are you going to do but play a great video game? And it's free, so I highly recommend jumping in there. Next, Matt, we're going to talk about a game that a lot of people are calling a Portal clone called the Turing Test. You've been playing the game this week. What are your impressions of it?
It's a Portal clone. Yeah, I mean, there's no way around that, for sure. You are a female protagonist in a first-person puzzle game with a specialized gun, alone solving puzzle rooms with an AI being sassy to you. I mean,
really?
it is Portal.
It's that blatant.
I mean, the AI is more. I mean, it's more of a. It's not a comedy. It's a. It feels like it's a serious sort of like you're woken up.
Portal is kind of a dark comedy.
Sort of. I mean, there's no comedy here so far. It's like you wake up out of a hypersleep thing, and you have to go down to Europa, the moon of Jupiter, and find out what happened to the rest of your crew. And you have your AI assistant for the mission, Tom, and he sounds a whole lot like the narrator from the Stanley Parable. I haven't actually looked up to see if it is him, but it sounds a lot like him. And basically, you solve puzzle rooms to find the crew, and with the assistance of Tom, and you end up in like these conversations. So like basically, each room is like a discrete puzzle, and whereas Portal was like figure out how to use the portal things to get through. This is purely like you have a gun that can like all the locks for all the power nodes are run by little power balls. And your gun can suck them out of the nodes and store up to 3 of them. And then there's also like blocks with power in them you can like carry around and stick into the thing. So, and like some of the nodes you can use either the ball and the gun, or you can use a physical object, or some of them only use the ball and the gun, and then some of the balls are green and they intermittently provide power, so you have to use those to get through certain things. Or not use them to get through certain things, because sometimes they won't open stuff long enough for you to get across or whatever.
Right.
But basically, that's what you're doing. Your gun can summon the energy through any kind of open space. So a lot of it revolves around take the block one, plug it in somewhere so you can get somewhere so you can see the non-block one, suck that in, and use it to open the exit door. You do that over and over and over. And there's some moderately like clever permutations of that, but obviously the most interesting thing about Portal was the fact that it had that weird spatial trick it was doing, where like you could see through them just kind of that mind-bending, physical element of being able to break the world like that, and that ain't here.
Oh, really?
It's just, you're literally just, it's not dissimilar from The Witness, and it's like every single puzzle is the same. It's all the same kind of thing.
Because Portal did a really good job of introducing what at first seems to be really simple, fundamental concepts, and then teaching you them very well. And then gradually moving you to this place where you start doing things with those simple concepts that you could have never comprehended when you first started playing the game.
Yeah, there's not as much potential, because I think Portal, you have the advantage of the breaking of space, you have the advantage of free placement of where that happens, and you have the advantage of the keeping inertia when you go through the portal that like is used for the launching yourself out and stuff, and like how Portal's so good at you can launch out of stuff, you're moving at full speed, but you still have the aim control to like place a portal exactly where you need it.
Yeah.
Being able to aim and like nail stuff, like pull, there isn't any puzzles so far. I'm about a little over halfway through the game. There has not been a puzzle where I had to like leap out of a thing. There's just not. There's no jumping really in this game. And so instead of kind of having that big like kind of toolbox to use like Portal does, this one is like. There's a lot of really clever ways they go about changing how you have to kind of figure out where to get the energy to open the final door of a room. But it's all kind of you're shuffling the same card deck over and over again. And there's some interesting stuff, and they do like build. Now there's like now in Chapter 3, like you see you're running. Oh, there's light bridges or things, and for that you can they have now there's like things that hold like reservoirs of charges. So instead of like just instantly turning off, when you pull it out, like it has a little timer that runs out.
Gotcha.
So it's stuff like that. But it's like, and then every time you go into a new room, like you and the AI are constantly having this conversation about the nature of AI and whether AI can be creative versus humans. And what the Turing Test is.
Of Portal as well. There's a little bit of that.
Somewhat, but it's like it's much more straight. It's much more Discovery Channel than Comedy Central.
Right,
if you get like.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And there's hints that maybe Tom is not quite on the up. There's some twisty stuff that happens later on, which like I don't know.
All the reviews for this game, by the way, said derivative until the end.
Yeah. I'm not there yet, so I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're getting there.
Yeah, but it is pretty derivative.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but
is
like
it good?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, if this kind of puzzle does it for you, like there's a lot of different permutations, and it's kind of a nice little. If you know enough about the current state and theory of AI, a lot of this is going to be review.
Yeah.
If you don't know what a Turing test is, it might be pretty interesting because most of what they're talking about is real.
Yeah, it is.
And they do
or
a
at
pretty
least loosely based in reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an actual working theory that people trying to develop real AI are working from. Maybe it may or may not be right, but
Chatbots.
Right. They do that. They bring that up.
Oh,
There's a whole conversation about the chatbot thing.
Which is like the big sensation now. Like we curate some of the publications that we curate from aren't 100% games. Like some of them, like Vice, like they have a games channel, but they also cover entertainment and other like science and stuff like that. And man, chatbots are like the thing right now. Like VentureBeat is another example. Like VentureBeat covers all kinds of stuff, but we have all their content coming into our admin because we don't want to miss any of the game stuff that they do. And literally, like, every day, VentureBeat has, like, 5 stories on chatbots. It's insane.
Yeah, well, that's where it'll happen first.
Yeah.
So, once you pass that, and then, like, there's a lot of talking about the Chinese room thing, the actual puzzle, the actual thought experiment, not the developer that insulted The Witcher. Because, like, no one remembers that now.
Yeah.
But it's it's like, so clearly they had something to talk about. It's weird to me how they went so portally with it because you're inevitably going to invite comparisons and you are not going to win that comparison.
That's a good point though. We should probably discuss this. How do you feel about blatant ripoffs like this game? Do you think they're good for the industry? Do you think they're bad for the industry?
I think they're a tradition for the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, does anyone remember the NES? Because half that library was like Mario clones.
It was, yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be the hot thing.
All the Mario 64 clones.
Right,
that have
Mario
come.
64 thing. You had all the terrible fighters that came out in the wake of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. You have, obviously there was all the militaristic shooters that were still kind of recovering from that problem in the wake of Call of Duty.
With kill streaks, all these other games started trying to do kill streaks, and now they're. I don't think there aren't even kill streaks at all in Battlefield 1.
And now at this point, I would actually say with the advent of VR, we are starting to see that happen with. I never thought I'd say it. We're starting to see that happen with space fighter stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's for a genre that disappeared from about 1999 until maybe 4 years ago. Like all of a sudden, it's like God, there's so many Starfighter games. I don't.
Well, then EVE Online went free to play this week.
Yeah.
Which is a huge deal after 10 years.
And it's just like. There's cycles of that, and I'm surprised there haven't been more Portal ripoffs. Frankly, this is probably.
Well, I think it's because it's not an easy game to design.
Not.
Like you have to have a really smart person sitting there designing those levels. Like not even if it go beyond really smart, like borderline genius, you'd have to be to design all the puzzles.
I wouldn't put this on the level of Portal's puzzle design, but it is good. It is fun, and it is interesting for the most part, and it does support VR. It exposed an interesting quirk in my VR setup in that every time I would open it, it would start Steam VR. It would start the Vive up. And I'm like, why are you doing
automatically?
That? Yeah, it would just start it up. I'm like, why are you doing that? What are you doing? And it wouldn't not do it.
Wow,
and it would just kept starting up, and I would close it, and if I closed the Steam VR thing, it would shut the whole game down.
Wow.
And it wouldn't display in the goggles, but it would still start. I'm like, well, I don't just want it on. Let's not leave it on when there's no reason. Finally, I had to dig more and more. It turns out that's some quirk of Unreal Engine 4.
Oh, really?
That likes to do that, and so I had to go into Steam.
It just automatically triggers it.
Yeah,
basically.
and I had to go, and other games do that too, but I'd never seen one do it so insistently before. And it turned out I had to go into the developer options of Steam VR and uncheck like auto launch Steam VR when an application supports it. So there's, I guess there's an option like if the game can be VR, it will launch in VR, which is a weird thing to have on by default. But there you go. I guess it's so people don't think their headset isn't working.
Right.
So that was fun. So thank you, Turing Test, for helping me pass my VR test. I guess that was weird. So like I don't know if it's worth $20.
It's $20.
It's $20.
How long have you played it so far?
Like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'd say it's
Feel like you're getting near the end?
Yeah, no, I'm halfway. I'm
Okay.
a little more than halfway, judging by how many chapters there are in the thing.
If you're a huge Portal fan,
Yeah, I mean,
it's probably worth $20.
Yeah,
because I don't know if we're ever getting another Portal. If we do, it'll probably be for VR, is my guess.
Or
they'll just repurpose.
There's a lot of mods, like user mods, that make some pretty good stuff for
Yeah.
Portal if you want to go that route with it. There's a VR Portal, like somebody did like 10 VR missions for Portal, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's weird because it's so much like Portal, but at the same time, when you think about I can't really think of a lot of Portal clones, frankly.
There aren't any.
And nobody really has the balls to try that one because it's such a high bar. And while Turing Test doesn't hit that bar, it's still pretty damn good. Like if Portal had never come out, we would probably be looking at this game and be like, "Holy crap! Like what the hell?" Like,
well, Portal did come out like a long time ago, though.
So and it's like I would say if you like the drift, this is not entirely dissimilar from that in terms of tone and setting. Like there's a lot of work that clearly went into trying to make this a believable. That's also kind of like one of the dissonant things about it is like there's at the beginning and end of every chapter there's sort of a room. Every chapter ends with like a room where you find like, oh, this is the crew quarters, and you sort of like look around and see like find some information out about the story. The story kind of makes an environmental, storytelling moment kind of thing, and those areas are incredibly detailed and incredibly well thought out. There's like a lot of thought went into what would this look like if we really did have this installation, this mission to Europa. And so, like, those are really cool and believable. And then the rest of the game are these, like, incredibly miles and miles of, like, puzzle corridors that you could only figure out with this one particular gun. And you're like, there's supposed to be the crew built all this to hide from the AI. Because you've been in, like, hypersleep for, like, years.
Uh-huh.
So, like, theoretically, I guess the crew has been building incredibly complex puzzle rooms so the AI can't find them, and that's why the AI wakes you up because he doesn't have the creativity to figure these things out. And there's a whole thing where he's like, the first puzzle you have to the very first puzzle is like one of the block things, and you have to like drop it through a window and then go through the door and pick it up and go. And like later on, he's like, I would never have thought to do that, And so like that's the idea is like you are you're creative in a way that he can't be. So there's sort of this feeling of like, oh, okay, so you need me to help you get to the crew, but then it's like, do you want to? Should he get to the? There's like that kind of that question of like, why are they running? Have they all gone crazy? Is the AI gone crazy? Like,
there's a fear of a hidden agenda,
right?
But
you don't even know who has the hidden agenda or if they both have hidden, So there is like that definite sort of walking simulator unfolding of the mystery. But if you stop to think and you're like, wow, I don't know who the puzzle designer was on this space crew, but somebody really missed their calling. The exobiologist should have been writing for Puzzle Weekly or something.
Yeah, going back to the whole clone thing, I just kind of want to mention that I feel like clones are important because a lot of times they're not good and they fail, but they show a lot of times they expose things not to do with that style of game. And obviously this is really the first Portal clone. I can't think of really another one.
Not really. I mean,
but with other genres, you talk about 3D platformers.
There's things that took like like Stanley Parable clearly takes the element of walking through an area with a narrating voice sort of driving the action. But like in terms of like that plus puzzle rooms plus story unfolding as you like, this is the only example of that I can really think of.
But yeah, a lot of times, like you even think back to like the N64 era with a lot of the 3D platformers that came out from third-party publishers, like they showed what not to do.
Yeah, at the very least, you're like, wow, Mario 64 really is good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's happened with pretty much every genre. You know, when it comes out for the first time, other people try to imitate it, and they kind of show people, they show the developer what not to do in the sequel, I guess, in a lot of cases.
And every once in a while,
they certainly serve a purpose.
Well, every once in a while, they'll hit on something good.
Yeah.
You know, like one of these
one little tweak or something
oh, hey,
like
that's
that.
a good idea. Maybe when someone makes a good game, they can use that.
Right, and they'll actually enjoy it and play it.
I wouldn't say Turing Test is that far gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's still worth playing.
Yeah.
Especially if you liked Talos Principle. I guess would be kind of maybe the closest other analog. Yeah, it was a nice surprise in that, like, oh wow, it's sort of a slow unfolding of like, wow, this is kind of like Portal. Oh, this is really like Portal. Oh my God, this really want to be Portal. Like, and then this sort of like slow realization of like, oh, this isn't really going to get any more interesting, like in terms of puzzle mechanics and like.
Will you go back and finish it?
Yeah, I'll go back. I mean, it's real short, really, and the story's. Everybody's talking about this twist, and I have a bad feeling that like it's going to be one of those things where it's like everybody says like, "Oh my God, this was amazing! This twist was incredible!" But the fact that I've man, like I put on like science podcasts and stuff just to listen to when I'm doing like a repetitive game. Like I know all this stuff already.
Right,
I know. I'm aware of I've heard the Michio Kaku lecture.
You think the twist,
and I feel the twist to me is going to be like, oh yeah, that. Sure.
Gotcha.
So I'm worried it's going to be that, but hopefully it's more of a narrative twist than like a ha-ha modern technology theory you didn't know about thing. Like I'm hoping it's going to be more of a 2001 ending than a like Sunshine ending. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. So this morning, Nintendo didn't really do a Nintendo Direct. It was another one of those pre-recorded jobs that they've done for the last few installments, all based on the 3DS. For us, we've mentioned on the show, we kind of thought the 3DS was kind of heading out the pasture. We know the NX, or at least we think the NX is kind of this console handheld hybrid. Mm-hmm. That's the case. Holy cow. Like, Nintendo showed a ton of new 3DS stuff today. Probably at least the biggest one for me, a side-scrolling Pikmin game for the 3DS.
Didn't
praying
call that one.
No. I am praying to God that this is not like the Pikmin that Miyamoto's been saying has been done for, like, ever. Because, I don't know.
Probably is.
The way Nintendo works, it's like they'll call things differently internally than what they ultimately call the game when they show it to everybody. So this could have been like Pikmin 4 that we saw today that Miyamoto's been talking about, because he didn't say it was like.
And they have a history of like kind of doing that thing. It's like, no, we gave you
Pikmin.
I mean, to me, it all goes back to the interview with Reggie with Jeff Keighley, where like Keighley was like, "Where the hell are the games?" And Reggie's like, "We got Animal Crossing," and Jeff's like, "Reggie," and like he wouldn't budge on that. And I was like, okay, so Nintendo didn't care what you want. They're gonna say like, oh, that counts. That's a real thing. Federation Force is a Metroid game. What's wrong with you? Like,
that argument does not hold water.
No, especially now. Like, okay, it was one thing when they're on top of the world and they didn't need to like really cater to. Well, they did, but they didn't know it yet. They didn't need to cater to the kind of the core demographic. But now it's like, dude, you better make us happy.
Yeah,
like
they really
real
need to.
fast,
big time. I mean, I love the Pikmin universe. I love the Pikmin characters. I love the Pikmin aesthetic. I love Pikmin's music. So I'm pretty excited for this. I mean, it's certainly not like an RTS like the original Pikmin.
I mean, I figure it won't be bad, but it's sort of that thing where it's like, sort of that lineup of games we've had for the last year and a half, from them minus Super Mario Maker, where it's just
well, not so fast, Matt.
Yeah.
They announced Super Mario Maker for 3DS.
Yeah, this is feeling like a PSP lineup.
It really is starting
It's like, hey, would you like to play inferior versions of the thing you already own on a console?
But you can walk with it.
Yeah.
So Super Mario Maker for 3DS, I think we probably saw that coming 8 miles
there
away.
There will be a Super Mario Maker for every
Nintendo
platform touches forever.
Ever released until infinity.
Isn't it going to be interesting in like 10 to 15 years where there's a generation of kids that like know Mario as
the game they make?
Game where you make levels and don't, like, they'll put out like a retro Mario game and they'll be like, how come you can't make stuff?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I've mentioned before that I was not a huge fan of Super Mario Maker. I like it, and I respect it, and I think it was a really well-created game and up to Nintendo's usual standards, but I'm just kind of over 2D platformers in general. Like, I've just played so many throughout my life, like going back to like Pitfall and the Atari 2600. Like, I have played I can't tell you how many hours I've spent playing side-scrolling platformers. I mean, it must be in like the thousands and thousands of hours I've spent, and it's like all the little twists they bring to them or whatever. Like I'll try them for like a couple hours, and I'm like, I get it, and I just kind of move on. It's honestly probably one of the only genres I think I would ever say that I'm like over.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I Mario was never my choice of poison, so to say. Like, I always found Mario a little creepy.
Yeah.
Like there's a weird like off-putting element
I
of
think
Mario.
that's what is kind of cool about it too, though.
Sort of, but like I don't have any kind of like sentimental attachment to that world or those characters or any of that. And like, so on the one hand, like I didn't play them obsessively to the point that I'm sick of them, but I do like 3D Mario better. Like I think
that a billion times more.
And also, apparently, I'm off in fucking Crazy Town because my favorite 2D Mario is Super Mario World.
Yeah.
On the Super Nintendo.
Whereas,
like, apparently the correct choice is Super Mario Bros. 3.
Right.
Which I always found that left me completely cold.
Yeah.
Back at the time, because I'm like, what happened to the background? Like, I hate the art direction, the art style of that game. And Mario World was more like, oh, like we've taken, like, you know, what was in the original game and sort of extrapolated into the 16-bit world, and now it's like all weird and crazy and colorful and awesome, and you can fly and stuff like. So, like, I like the weirdo Mario. I mean, I don't like Mario Sun. I guess Mario Sunshine would be the weirdo 3D game. I think it's Galaxy and World to me.
Yeah. Fair enough. They also announced Yoshi's Woolly World for the 3DS.
I want a Sonic Maker. Sonic Mario. I want a Sonic the Hedgehog Maker.
I'm surprised Sega hasn't announced it already.
I'm not, because Sega doesn't do good things. Sega sometimes brings Yakuza to the West. That's about all I'll give them these days.
I mean, a Sega Maker or a Sonic Maker would...
Sonic Maker would be great.
It'd probably be their best-selling game of the year.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah, that's like a really good idea. So,
you can have that one. You're welcome, Sega.
Yoshi's Woolly World, Wii U game, did not sell especially well. Now it's coming to the 3DS.
Adorable, though.
It is an adorable game.
Really nice looking, too.
It doesn't look quite as good on the 3DS.
No, not as good.
The Wii U game is like stunning. Like, it is literally probably one of the top 3 or 4 games released for the Wii U as far as graphics are concerned. They have, like, I don't know if did you play the game at all? So there was like
the
a
Wii
dog.
U one?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you know Poochie the dog.
Yeah.
He actually is.
I also know him from The Simpsons.
Yeah. He's actually playable
Oh.
in the 3DS version. They have a couple levels built just for him. And yeah, the graphics have been downgraded pretty significantly, even looking at it on the small screen. Yeah. But I think that's maybe a case, and they do have like all the levels from the Wii U version, plus extras, plus the Poochie stuff. And I think that's just a case of Nintendo trying to recoup some of the money on the investment in that game, because it didn't really sell well in the West or in Japan. So looks like Nintendo trying to milk a little extra honey out of that game. I think, in all honesty, the biggest announcement today was the new Street Pass stuff. Did you ever get into Find Me and all those Street Pass games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't go much beyond that, but I still bring the 3DS to, like, you know, events and stuff for Find Me and the puzzle thing.
Well, I'm sure you remember, if you've ever gone to a convention with your 3DS and had your Street Pass on,
oh, yeah.
like, you walk 5 feet and it was filled.
10.
That's all you could have is 10.
10.
Yeah.
10.
And then you'd have to sit down, you have to sort through all 10, and you walk another 50 feet and it's full again.
A few E3s ago, I actually sat down in that center breezeway to check my thing, and I got 10. And by the time I was done doing it, I had 10 more. I sat there for almost an hour just processing Mies. Like,
I don't know what's better, though, because so now they've expanded it to 100.
I think that's good, because a lot of times I've missed a lot of puzzle pieces because I don't have time to continually look at my 3DS when I'm doing so, or I forget about it. And it'd be nice to be able to just sort of sit down at the end of the day and go. I mean, that'd take a long time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you get 100 in there, like. That's a lot.
I think as long as, because like right now...
I understand why they capped it at 10 is what I'm guessing.
Right. Well, I guess like right now, you have the 10, and like if you want to, you can do them all, and then like you can't really accept more. So maybe if they change that, so you can just, I have 100, I'm going to go through like 20, and then like I can put it away and more can come in while if you kind of make it a sliding...
So it stacks.
So like you don't have to like empty it out before you can get more. Like that would be good. Maybe they can figure out how to do that. But like, I'm all for more Mii's being able to step. I mean, I also like. I hope they do a cool way.
I just love that feature in general.
Oh yeah, I love it. But I hope they do a cool way where like when you get 100 people, because you have the lineup of 10. I hope there's a cool way where they show like 100 people.
Well, they showed there's like, Yeah, groups. Like your me is in front, and then there's the group of people coming towards you, behind you.
Run!
Yeah.
I didn't get to watch it because that went up so early this morning.
Yeah, I feel like that feature is something Nintendo should have expanded way, way more than it did.
Yeah.
Like when the 3DS first came out, like at GT, we were completely and hopelessly hooked and addicted to that feature.
Well, they had all those other, like the Garden and stuff like that came out. But like I never played any of those because like they cost actual money.
Right.
And I didn't really use it enough. Like, this might encourage me...
most of the games suck. Like, really, the only game that was worth playing was Find Me.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of very simple RPG that was just stock on the system. They have introduced, again today, some new mini-games. There's like a slot car racing game and a couple others. I haven't played them yet, so I can't really pass any judgment to say whether they're going to hold up to Find Me or something like that. But, in my opinion, more is good as far as that feature is concerned. Because it is one thing that the 3DS does that really nothing else can do. Like, there was a point where I was actually thinking about doing an app that would be like a Find Me for mobile, for like iPhone and Android. When I was working on like Sifted and a bunch of other ideas that I kind of had on the back burner. And there's really, the technology just really isn't there for it yet. Like, you have GPS, which is very rough, but it's like you don't really know if you pass someone directly on the street with GPS. And so the technology isn't even really there for mobile at this point. So it is a clear advantage of the 3DS hardware that it can do that, and I feel like Nintendo should have milked it a little more than it did. This is one case where Nintendo did not milk something as much as it should have. Let's see, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on Wii U backwards compatibility. I think maybe another case of them trying to get a little more juice out of a game that didn't sell as well as maybe they hoped.
But also just sort of like, please wait for Breath of the Wild. Like, they're just constantly trying to appease the Zelda fans at this point. And so that's interesting that, like, you've really hit a point now where, I guess it's kind of nice where, like, with the Wii, but if you have a Wii U and a 3DS, you can play every Zelda game ever made.
Yeah, you can.
Like, once that's out. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I hope they keep that philosophy up for the NX, where it's like you can maybe get everything all your whole Nintendo experience sort of in one or one end related boxes kind of thing.
It would be too smart. Too smart. Which means it'll probably never happen.
Yeah. And I'm also very interested in the future of Skyward Sword because, like, obviously this will work on the Wii U because you can use Wii controllers with it. I kind of have this feeling that unless they decide somehow to completely rework that game in future generations, that's going to be a lost Zelda.
Well, maybe.
Because the Wii U controller thing can only be supported for so long. And at some point, you're not going to be able to play that game except like on an emulator.
I mean, according to rumors, the NX has Waggle.
All right. Well, if they never.
But how long? You're right. How long are they going to proliferate that out across generations? I mean, it seems to me that eventually Nintendo is going to have to take the time to make a version of that game that works with a traditional game controller. You're right. Like, someday that day's going to come if they want to keep making money off Skyward Sword because. You're right. How much longer are we going to be able to use these Wiimotes, which I'm happy about. Like, I'm glad that I bought these controllers so long ago, and now we're coming up on, like, the third iteration of Nintendo platforms, and I can still use that motion control.
Well, I still have the, the gold one that came with Skyward Sword.
Yeah,
the only good thing about buying Skyward Sword.
I enjoyed Skyward Sword.
I did not like
it was disappointing compared to most 3D Zeldas, but I still enjoyed it.
I got through, I think, 2 dungeons, and I was like, done.
Well, you almost finished the game.
Yeah, I heard later on. I didn't realize. I was
close.
I was just not. It was funny because like that game had a lot of what I really wanted. Like because like Zelda and Link were actual characters this time, and there was like a lot of expressiveness to them, and they were trying to like kind of
for better or
do
worse
a slightly different story with them and all. At least they weren't going by formula.
Well, it had that goofy like overworld thing where you'd fly on the bird.
Oh yeah, and then you just like drop down and like. I'm like, God, you guys really are afraid of making an open world.
I think it was the bridge game, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It was them finding, that was the middle ground between what they were doing.
The transition from Twilight Princess to Breath of the Wild through that game. And I also really like the art style in it.
Yeah.
I should like Skyward Sword more than I do.
Sometimes it looks amazing. Sometimes it looks terrible.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword. That art style does not play well across like all environments
and
all characters for whatever reason.
And then you also had the that fatal bug
Oh, yeah.
It's like if you did something, I don't remember what
You
it was.
get trapped in a room, right? You couldn't get out of the
Yeah,
room.
it was like if you did something at the wrong time, you could basically hit a point where you could not.
You were stuck in a room, I think is what it was. You could not get out of the room. Yeah, huge mistake there. The only other game probably worth mentioning from the Direct today, Mario Sports Superstars for the 3DS again. Like we said, this was a 3DS Direct. But it looks like some of these sports are like a big deal. They're not just like these little goofy mini games things. Like the soccer game in it is like full 11-on-11 soccer. So it looks like this isn't just like a crappy mini game compilation where the soccer is like try to score on the penalty kick.
That's good because
and the football game is like throw the football through the ring or whatever.
That's good because even though it's 3DS, but it's like those
bless you.
Those Mario sports games have just like seemed to have vanished.
Disappeared.
And like the soccer one was great. Strikers was really good.
It was, yeah. They put out the tennis game at the end of last year, I believe it was, and it reviewed horribly. It was not well received by critics. It looked like, again, just a quick cash-in. But this one looks like at least a little bit more effort has gone into it. But again, it's a 3DS game. Nintendo did crack a couple of jokes today in the Direct about, like, how people are going to be disappointed we're not talking about the next hardware. There was some tongue-in-cheek stuff in there a little bit.
You got 30 days, boys. Or I don't believe it's coming in March anymore.
But you know what I hoped was that at the end of this Direct,
they'd have a little...
They'd be like, here's
zinger.
The day.
Yeah.
Here's the day. Like, okay, next month, this day, the biggest Nintendo Direct in Nintendo Direct history, whatever, is coming. They didn't even have to say it was NX. Like, they could just say, it's coming. And that's all it would take. Reggie just looking at the camera saying, it's coming.
Get your bodies ready.
Get your body ready, exactly. Like, that's all it would have taken. They did nothing.
No.
A couple offhanded comments throughout the show, but I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
I don't know. I think it's looking bleak at this point. Like, Nintendo doing 2 Directs in 1 month, unlikely.
I mean...
Unless there's like a last minute sort of like, you know what? We should get the 3DS thing out of the way. Right now,
maybe.
Like we should do that. We should do that now. Get it out of the way, because the NX is going to be all encompassing.
I would also think Nintendo, instead of doing a Direct to show off its new hardware, it would actually do a live press event, so people could actually get their hands. That's what Nintendo does. When it shows new hardware, after the press event is over, there's always a room that the journalists can go to actually put their hands on the hardware and play the hardware.
I feel like that event might happen, but it would not be what they broadcast. I think they will do a pre-recorded thing to put out on the net while you've got the journalists and influencers at an event where they get to have hands-on time in a presentation or whatever. But I feel like
I have received no invitation from Nintendo. If this event is happening like in the next month, like I've got nothing.
I mean, look, that would be my theory, but like I also will not be surprised if it's just another Direct.
Yeah, it could be.
And because like they don't, I don't know. Like I don't know what Nintendo. It's hard to predict Nintendo's next move on this thing because they've been so cagey about it, especially in the whole like, oh, we don't want people to. No one's going to steal it. Trust.
Yeah. Well, at this point, it's like a month away. Like.
Yeah.
There's no stealing it now. One final thing on Nintendo before we move on. More rumors coming out this week, again from someone who had broken stuff in the past, which none of it has been proven true yet. Nothing with the NX has been proven true yet. But the latest rumors are NX could be region-free, and it'll have a social share button like the PlayStation 4, where you can share your gameplay and your screenshots and all that stuff. I guess. I mean, we kind of already had that with, like, Miiverse. I mean, it wasn't just, like, a dedicated button or whatever that sent you to Miiverse, but you could go to Miiverse and share all that stuff on their social network. And so,
Miiverse is kind of a pain, though, so anything to streamline that process would be nice.
It is, and it's also highly censored, and I'd rather be able to just link into existing social networks and get my stuff out that way, where someone's not going to take it down because I said I didn't like Mario whatever, which happens, like, on Miiverse. Like, you're censored a little bit. And I get it. There's a lot of kids on there, and you got to try to keep it clean.
Yeah, well, they should probably police the drawings that pop up on my like Miiverse like circle thing.
They try to. I mean, they hire live people to constantly scour Miiverse to take stuff like that down.
Oh, I'm sure, but every once in a while, like Peach hanging out with a toadstool that looks a little more like something else. Shows
an elongated toadstool.
What? He's just tall.
Yeah. Matt, is no region locking a big deal?
Not to me.
Yeah.
But I think
I would like to have that feature.
It's better than having it region locked. I mean, every once in a while I do like to, import a thing. That's the thing is
Without
like
having
Nintendo.
to set up some goofy other
Nintendo.
account.
I mean, it would have made my life a lot easier when I wanted to play Xenoblade when we didn't know it was coming to the U.S. and I got the UK version and I had to do all this weird homebrew things to the Wii to get it to work. And it actually wasn't that bad. It was pretty simple. The homebrew channel was a fairly elegant piece of work, frankly. Whoever people who made that was pretty good stuff. It was not as hard as I thought it would be, and it doesn't bork the system forever.
Right.
But yeah, if I could just if something happens and who knows what Nintendo's going to do or not do, and if I decide I want to import this thing because otherwise I'll never play it, it'd be nice to be able to just pop it in and play. I mean, so yeah, I'll always support region free over not region free, sure.
I mean, at this point though, with publishers like NIS America, Axis, and Atlas, pretty much every game from Japan that's even kind of worth playing, and some could even be argued not worth playing, are coming to the West.
Well, that certainly happens with the PS4, but the NX is
and
going to
the 3DS and the Vita.
But that's going to.
Well, Vita not so much.
Well, Vita is still sort of a weird, a delivery.
Vita is surviving on Japanese.
Yeah, it's surviving on incredibly strange, slightly disturbing anime games.
Over the line in some cases, yeah.
Oh god,
like Criminal Girls or whatever.
Oh yeah, and
basically you whip the girl to convince her to go fight for you.
And there's a lot of it's not Senran Kagura, but it's the same developer has made some other thing where the bullet points at the back of the box are sexually excite the girl until she gives you what you want or something. It's okay, sure. Thanks, Vita.
Yeah, that's kind of what the Vita's become. That and indies.
Pretty much. And I guess now that they cracked the firmware, there's a big homebrew scene now.
Oh yeah, anything's possible now.
But that also, it's funny because that brought up the memory card price argument again.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I have a reason to want a 64 gigibyte
and then the
memory
price
card.
went up even higher.
And, it's like you forget. The proprietary memory card prices on the thing's one of the things that helped sink that system.
It crushed it, yeah.
Because it was that
was a huge mistake.
Yeah, a 64 gigabyte card is still $100 for that thing.
And meanwhile, you can buy the same size SD card for $35.
Oh, I found one for $16.
Yeah.
It's just and it's really why? It was a terrible.
Something Nintendo got right with the 3DS at least.
I mean, the main problem there, I think, was that. They said, oh, our mistake with the PSP was we just gave you bad, inferior versions of games you already had on the PS3, so we're not going to do that. And then they proceeded to do that exact thing.
Yeah. Except
for the weird niche. Outside the launch window, there was nothing for anyone who already had a PS4 and didn't want to play stuff on the road. I mean, I know there's people that are just obsessed with playing, remote play stuff, but I can't stand the lag on it, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. That's a post-mortem I'd love to do with, with enough time has passed that Sony be willing to, or someone who worked on that system would be willing to speak honestly about it.
The one thing I hope is, if there is no region lock, is that it also unifies, the online store. Because one thing I hate about having, regions is that, a lot of times demos come out in Japan for games. And they never come out here, or maybe they come out way later here. I would love the ability to just go to the Japanese store and download free demos for games that may never even come out in the United States.
Or get the DLC for things you import.
And you can do it a lot of times.
Yeah, but you have to create a separate Asian account or whatever. Yeah, I guess
it's a janky, weird way to do it.
That's the way you do DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball 3. You have to have a separate account for all that stuff. I actually have that game, but I haven't opened it.
You went and you bought the game?
I have it. Yeah, I bought it. My girlfriend wanted to play it too. She loves that series, but I haven't opened it mainly because my favorite character in that series is Christy, and she's not in the game.
Oh, well, that actually segues nicely into the next topic. It actually wasn't the next topic, but we're going to make it the next topic.
Do that?
Yeah. So this week, we got the first glimpse of Dead or Alive Xtreme 3 VR. We've known it was coming for a long time. We had at least an inkling of what it was going to be like. I think maybe we all were...
I think we all knew what that was going to be.
A little nervous, but I have to say that now that I've actually seen it in action, it's far worse than I thought it was going to be. It really is far worse than I thought.
I think the key there is you knew it was going to be a VR thing where you get to stare at the girl.
You knew it was going to be pervy, and
you didn't know that they were going to be trying to stop you.
Yes.
That's really weird.
Yes.
I mean, I know that's part of the fetish, but that's it's a sexual assault sim basically.
It is.
It didn't help. Look, guys, it didn't help the guy you picked to demo it.
Yeah.
like the shots, the cutaway shots of him were really the thing that was, almost
That's
as
VR,
big of a
though.
problem.
That's
Yeah.
the thing about VR.
I mean, you look like an idiot in the helmet anyway, but like he's like, you're like, bro. That is the thirstiest gameplay I've ever seen.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is bad. And I'm wondering now if Koei Tecmo knew what the VR iteration of this game was going to be like.
Yeah.
And maybe that was part of what convinced them or it to not release the base game in the West.
Yeah.
Knowing that they had this VR product coming that was going to cause all kinds of...
Because they've released the other two, it didn't set the world on fire or anything in the West, but like
they sold pretty well though for what they were.
I mean like in terms of like controversy, it wasn't a big deal. You know, it was just like, all right, sure.
There was rumblings. Well,
and but even the people I know who like don't want to see women like unnecessarily sexualized in games are like, well, that's what that game's for, so go for it. You know, it's like it's not an issue when it's like, yeah, the purpose of this game is to put girls in bikinis and stare at their boobs. Like, that's the game. Like, I mean, they're playing volleyball.
There's volleyball in there.
But like, we put a lot more effort into the way like the boob squishes into the bed cover than we did into like the volleyball physics. You know, there's a lot more going on there. And like, if that's what your aim on the game is, great. Like, I mean, everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows what they're getting.
I mean, everyone knows. I mean, you could argue that the aim of this VR version is to grope girls.
Oh yeah,
virtually,
and it is.
So does that make it okay though?
No, I mean I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but it's like okay,
it's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's not a moral choice really because they're not real. But it's like yeah, I will totally say like, should this game exist? Sure. Am I going to judge you if you do that?
Should it exist, or are you okay with it existing?
Yeah.
You think it should exist?
Well, if someone wants to make it.
I'm okay with it existing because I feel like people should have the freedom to create what they want as long as it's not hurting anyone else, although that could be argued that this does sort of hurt women in some
Well, there is the element
way.
of like, it's like, you know, and I know people try to make a parallel with like, you know, the extreme violence in games and stuff. It's like, well, I don't really have an equivalent in normal life of a lot of the murders I commit in video games. You know, like there's not, you know, I don't have a chainsaw machine gun. Yeah. And if I did, I don't have really an opportunity to cut anyone in half with it. Yeah. I don't even think that would work, frankly. Whereas, like, you know, with the harassment idea, I think, you know, it's, you know, maybe not like zooming your face into somebody's chest, but like some equivalent of that happens to pretty much every woman in their lifetime on a semi-regular basis. So it's like you're simulating something that is a much more present phenomenon to a normal everyday person than you are with like, you know, mowing down zombies with a machine gun.
How much longer until they put out like a body pillow that like you can buy the game with and like
that ship has sailed, my friend.
Is it really out there already? Or are you just
I'm sure. I mean, DOA character body pillows have been around for years and years.
Yeah. I think they may have invented the body pillow.
If they didn't, it was something very similar. And like so, yeah. I mean. What doesn't I think one of them? I think the special edition of the Asian version actually comes with like a miniature body pillow cover thing or something like that. Or maybe that was Record of Agarest War. I don't know.
But I think you're right though, Matt. I think what makes it not okay for me is the girl resisting. Mm-hmm. The girl saying no or trying to avoid you or keep you from doing it. Like I can't understand why in a million years they would ever put that in the game. Like I just can't. Like, I don't even remember that being a part of, like, Dead or Alive Xtreme.
It wasn't.
I never remember the girls ever resisting you in that game.
No.
That's a big caveat, by the way. Like, whether the girl is welcoming the advance or she's not. Like, that's a huge deal.
But that's also, I think that's the fetish there.
Well, there's, like, rape culture in Japan. Oh, it's so bizarre. Like, there's games like Rape Play and all these Rape Battle and all these...
Or that other, what's that one that was banned from Twitch where, like, you kidnap the girl and kill her or something? You remember that? There was a bunch of stories curated on it where like some you mean
Yandere Simulator?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's like a high school simulation game where you can kill. You're basically just trying to find a boyfriend, but the whole object of the game isn't just to kill. There's other things to do in the game. Negligible, but there are some other things to do in the game. I mean, this really just looks like like you said, a sexual assault virtual reality simulator.
Yeah, like it's more like, you know, should it be pulled from the market? No.
I
But,
mean-
like, am I going to judge people who like it?
For sure. I'm wondering if the whole object of the game is to get the girls to break down their walls
Probably.
and finally accept you.
I mean, that's the trope in, like, I mean, that's also a trope in, like, anime, like, boys love gay, yaoi, gay porn is like, one is like the more mature older guy, and one is the younger inexperienced boy, and like they don't want this, but then they do want it, and then like they actually enjoy it when they stop resist. Like that's like the trope basically.
Crazy.
So it is a pretty equal
Nika
opportunity.
Sarkeesian is going to have a field day with this game.
I'm sure
she's already working on that episode.
She's like, play Asia. I need a copy right now. It's that's the other thing is like you don't get to like really delve into this like subject with Western games ever. Like no Western. I mean, there probably are like weirdo one-off. Like I'm sure if
just one dude
dig into the dark net. There's a whole fleet of these or whatever.
Right.
But it's like you don't see this, especially with this level of production value and from a major company.
Yeah.
And I know it didn't come here, but it's like, I mean, that had to be why it didn't come here is because they knew this was going to be part of it. And it's like, there's no way to win there where like, if you bring that VR version over where the girls are trying to tell you to get away from them, you've got controversy. And if you just don't bring the VR portion to the West, everybody's going to freak out about censorship or whatever.
I wonder
so
if the Tekken guy...
just don't do it. Just stay away.
I wonder if the Tekken guy will defend this game as like cultural differences and you just don't get it and
Probably.
screw off.
Maybe? I don't know.
I mean, that's right.
I'm sure there's tons and tons,
but...
way more people than we would think that will look at this and not understand what we're even talking about.
I'm sure, yeah. All right, let's move on. Final Fantasy 15, as we all know, has been delayed again to November 29th.
For what I heard, a large part of the reason I heard was to basically not have a day one patch, to have what would have been the day one patch put on the disc.
That makes sense.
Because like 20% of console owners in Japan do not have their consoles on the internet.
Oh. I can see that for Japan, so delay it in Japan.
Yeah.
Put it out in the U.S.
But
I don't believe that.
Also, on top of that, it's like, get into the 21st century, people. Like, it's like, and I know we had like it was like 30% not connected to the internet in the last generation, but I think the last number I heard was like 10% or less.
I haven't
now.
even heard those stats anymore.
It's basically like the number's low enough that Sony and Microsoft don't feel the need to cater to them anymore.
Right.
And like I don't know. I mean, I'm not in a burning hurry to play this game or anything because I don't think it's going to be that great. But like putting it after Black Friday is
Big mistake.
bad.
So because of this delay, Tanabe's been doing a ton of interviews explaining why and talking more in depth about the game because it is really coming down the home stretch. Even though it was delayed,
11 years just wasn't enough.
Yeah, we're just a couple months away from playing it. And in one of the interviews this week, he told the journalist that Final Fantasy 15 is only open world for the first half of the game. And then, at a certain point, it becomes linear. Have you ever heard of a game that did this?
Well, Final Fantasy 13 did the opposite.
Yeah.
It was linear for the first
I guess you're right.
40 hours, and then it opened up into Grand Pulse.
That's kind of common, though, because a lot of times games will use like the early going as like a tutorial.
Yeah, but when your tutorial's 40 hours long, Final Fantasy 13 was like, it gets really good when you get to Grand Pulse. When you get to Grand Pulse, after about 40 hours, like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, later.
Like, you don't dare give me it gets really good after 40 hours.
I know.
No, I'm not going through a full work week to get to the good part.
It's like I've reviewed games in the past where I would say, it gets better towards the end, but it still sucks. And people are like, but it gets good at the end. It's like, no, you're asking someone to torture themselves. I only did this because I get paid for it because it's my job. I'm not going to tell somebody to go spend their money to torture themselves for 12 hours to get to the good part of a video game. Like, it's insane. But you're right. Here it's flip-flopped. Like, what most people would say is the more modern iteration of the video game is what you get at the beginning, and then it narrows it down and forces you down this path at the end. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
I mean, I've seen it. It happens in most open world games, but not to the point that you'd say the second half of the game. I mean, there's always
open world games have done that.
All of them. There's always a point of no return for like the final batch of missions where like you sort of a railroaded down.
Usually like a 1 hour section.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like that's not a half the
hours.
game. But like, I mean, yes, I mean, that's the thing is like, I'd rather have it like this in Final Fantasy 13 in the sense that, you know, if you're gonna like, you know, wrap the story up, you got to have some structure. You got to like, you know, get some focus going.
I mean,
half the game seems excessive.
Like that. I mean, there's tons of games that wrap up their story just fine without having to go to this singular.
Yeah, but this is Square, so let's start slow. You know, like really, like I mean, I have a lot more faith in a lot of those other open world developers to finish their story properly than I do with this game.
I just wonder, how do you manage the open world payoff? Because there are conversation trees in this game, right? They're simple. They're not.
I think, yeah.
I mean, how do you get all that to pay off? It's just because completely taking me aback.
Well, I mean, if it's like Final Fantasies have always been, it's going to be, you know, you have the open world, you do whatever you want, do what you want or do however you want, you get through all the various areas, and then you hit that point of no return, and then you dig through the rest of the story, and then you get kicked back out into the world, and now you can do all the post-game, you know, 100% stuff, get the rest of the trophies, fight Emerald Weapon, whatever the hell you want to do. Yeah. I mean, I figure it's going to be like that. It's just like, you know, every Final Fantasy has some kind of, you know, point of no return where like, okay, you're locked into the final act now. It's just that in this game, that's going to be like 20 hours or something, I guess. I don't know how long this thing's going to be, but like, or maybe he's, you know, not really estimating.
I think it's pretty long.
It sounds pretty long. Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing.
It sounds like it might be as long as Final Fantasy 13's equivalent was.
I mean, you look at the opening gameplay they've shown off, the first couple hours or whatever, there's all these systems in the game, and it's like, you have all these systems built around an open world, and then at the end you just shut them all down, and you're like, I don't know. To me,
that's
it
a
seems
big
weird.
map, too.
It's
like,
huge.
So, like, and part of me is like, does that map open up much faster than we thought it did? Like, because it looks huge, and there's all, you know, you've seen, like, oh, we've shown you this much. It's like that upper right corner. They're like, this is what you've seen in all the demos and all the trailers, and there's all this rest of the map, and you're like, what if, like, almost none of that is anything? Like, what if this whole section down here is like, oh, it's like one area and like mountains, you can't go past it. You know?
Right.
And this is like one city, and you just go through, take a train through the tunnel, and now you're in the other. You know, it's like, I wonder how much of that is deceiving in terms of, you know, not that they're actually trying to deceive us, but it's just like,
I don't think
you look at those maps and sometimes you're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff. It's like, that's a mountain range and that's a lake and that's, you know, like it's not really as big as you think it is.
I don't think anyone is going to ultimately complain about the length of this game. I think if anything, people are going to be like, this game's too damn long. Like, wrap it up. All right, let's move on. So this week, talked about Madden last week. We're going to talk about it again, but only tangentially. So this week, EA came out and announced that, and if you guys don't know, the backup quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers in a preseason game last week.
Backup is a kind word.
Yeah, he's on the borderline of being cut and not even making the team. But before one of their games last week, he refused to stand for the national anthem. And I know we have a lot of viewers in Europe, and you guys may not realize, it has turned into a huge crap storm in America. Like, not just sports networks are talking about it. The major news networks are talking about it because it's brought up all these other questions.
Standing up for a song is apparently really important here.
Yeah. And so EA came out this week, and I remember I talked last week about the commentary in the game and how good it was and how, you know, the commentators in the game were talking about things that had just happened like a couple days before. Well, as part of that program, EA is going to let the announcers talk about the Colin Kaepernick controversy. And I don't really want to talk about the controversy itself and get into all the politics of that. Or I just want to talk about how it relates to games. Matt, do you feel like political commentary is something that should be included, real-world political commentary, is something that should be included in video games?
Yes, if it's what your game is about.
If it's about political commentary.
Madden,
like if it's a Civ or something like that.
Here's the thing, like Madden, like I see kind of both ends of this argument for Madden, where it's like on one hand it's like, you know, keep the uncomfortable real world crap out of my video game where I just want to play football in my video game. On the other hand, if you're really going for that verisimilitude of reality, like that is what they're going to be talking about this week. And, you know, I doubt the commentators in Madden are going to be giving their opinions on his actions. I think it'd be more of like, Kaepernick, as you know, caused a little bit of controversy last week when he did not stand for the national anthem. But here he is today doing. You know, I'm sure that's all it'll be. It'll be like a passing mention.
It'll be interesting to see, because the other thing about the announcers in this game is that they're very happy-go-lucky and upbeat. Like, they never really talk about negative things, like the guy blew out his ACL, and like they don't talk about stuff like that. Like, it's all like,
maybe it'll be as simple as like if you bring Kaepernick in from the bench, it'll be like, oh, Kaepernick standing up for a change.
That would be great. That would be the best way to handle it.
I mean, to be clear, I do support his freedom to do whatever the hell he wants in terms of that.
Yeah.
But like, I think that would be funny.
That
and
would
it would kind of run around it being the tone of the announcements.
Sometimes you need stuff like that to diffuse the situation as well.
And on top of that, like even beyond the actual issue of what is happening here, like I think that's really impressive that they can get the commentary that current and that on target.
That's why I was talking it up last week. It is the best commentary I've ever heard in a sports video.
I mentioned that because people I knew online, like they saw the story about this and they're like wow, why would you update commentary for that? And I told them what you said about how you had commentary talking about like preseason games from like 3 days before you were playing your game, and everyone was like, oh, I might need to get this. Like it was like suddenly like everyone was interested in Madden because they're like, oh my god, that's amazing. Like,
it is amazing.
Like,
I don't know how long they'll keep it up. Like I wonder if like
so who
in
are
week
these
10 of the season.
I'm also curious. Like who are these two guys?
They're just like two nobodies.
They're
really.
nobodies. So
they're
some,
not huge announcers.
So they can afford to pay them weekly to keep coming in.
They
and
probably
doing
have a little studio at their house or whatever. I mean, most people who do voiceover have a closet that they've soundproofed with a good mic in there, and they do their voiceover.
That's really cool. I think
it's really cool. Getting back to political commentary in video games, I mean, personally, like, I play games to kind of escape all this crap. Like, obviously, a sports game is semi-based in reality, or sports reality, I don't even know. But, typically I play games to kind of check out from that stuff. Like, I don't want that kind of dragging into my hobby that I use. I mean, I'll fully admit, I use it to escape a little bit. Long day at work, burnout or whatever, I play games. Like, it's like Calgon. It takes me away. Like, I like that part of games, and like I understand why you play Madden. Like, there's this real score ticker that goes along the bottom that kind of takes you back to the real world, so you know what the real NFL teams are doing. I get all that, and so maybe Madden's a bit of an anomaly in this instance. But in general, like, I like to keep the real world and my video games separate, and so. Beyond just, I don't want someone's political agenda preaching to me during a game, I just don't even like that content in my games at all.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Although mainly it's like if you have something to say and you want to use the game to say it, like I'm cool with that. But like I would prefer to have a little artfulness to it. It's like I don't think there's a lot of artfulness to how Deus Ex Mankind delivers the Augs Lives Matter thing.
Right, yeah.
In the sense that I'm like, well, you didn't really take this idea or this event and have anything to say about it. You sort of co-opted the imagery.
Right.
So like if you have like something to say about that's kind of art. Art commentates on things like that. And if you want to use your game to do that, I will judge it on whether or not I think it makes its statement well, or more than whether I agree with it or not. It's like oh, if you can do it in an artful manner, that's cool. But like, do I need do I need a Trump joke in the next Mario game? No, I don't think we need that.
That's what I'm talking about. Like I just don't feel the need for people to pull that stuff into
It also
games.
dates things.
It does, yeah.
So, I mean, I know like dating something isn't really something you're worried about in a Madden game
because it has the date on it.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I think to have something to say about a political issue as a whole that is a societal question can make for a very interesting game. If you're just like.
Well, it's like This War of Mine is a game that I thought handled it pretty well.
Right, exactly. But like no one's really playing This War of Mine to escape.
Right. Yeah.
You gotta be in a particular frame of mind to sit down for that one.
You're right, for sure.
Oh, it's been a long day at work. I need to blow off some steam with This War of Mine. That said no one ever.
Said no one ever. Yeah.
But like when it comes to just sort of like throwing in some weird like reference to like modern political events or current stuff, like I think it's rarely worth it to sort of like pull, unless the game is set in that kind of world. Like, I
also find it boring though, because Call of Duty.
Like, I wouldn't want Deus Ex to have referenced President Trump,
right?
Basically, as some kind of thing like that. Like, I don't think I don't think that helps it. I don't think it's interesting, and it mostly just makes me think of other things that are not related to your game. I mean, go ahead and do it if you want. I mean, Working Design's made a good living out of it for a while back in the Sega CD days and the PlayStation 1 days. But now you play like that Lunar translation, and you're like, really? You put a joke in about South Central Los Angeles in the fantasy RPG? Like that's a thing. I'm like, what is that? How in the world am I supposed to reconcile that with the rest of this game, where all of a sudden the little flying cat thing is just like, oh, nope, this door is locked down tighter than a door in South Central, and I'm just like, what?
And did they lock down doors tight in South Central?
I don't know. Like I feel like whoever wrote that had never been to South Central.
That's a pretty good guess. I live in LA, and I've never been to South Central.
I have.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you driven through Compton before?
Yeah.
I never have.
I mean,
want to.
I've seen like
or do I?
I drove down there a couple times because there were some stores down there that had some Transformers I needed.
Oh, really?
And
I figured one.
You got to do what you got to do. But no, it's fine. During the day, it's fine. I
Really?
mean, sure, probably at night, it's fine. Nobody looked at me twice. It was fine.
Just lots of stray bullets flying around there. I just prefer to stay away from them.
I grew up next to Oakland. I'm
not
worried.
I'm no stranger to violence, but I think you're pushing your luck a little bit if you go to Compton sometimes. Let's move on, Matt. The next topic is something that may or may not rile you up a little bit. So HTC announced this week that it is working on a wireless version of the Vive head-mounted display. As someone who just recently purchased the wired version of Vive, how do you feel about that?
The wires don't really bother me that much.
Really?
Well, I haven't felt the need to pirouette much so far. You can always feel them enough that, like, you know when not to keep turning.
You can feel them getting tight if you're too far away.
Sort of, or like you can feel them against your calf, basically.
Okay.
And I haven't run into like a distance issue with them. I mean, I figure the wireless
How
one
long
was...
is the cable on the wired version?
I say it's about 10 feet. Maybe.
That seems a little short.
I haven't run into a problem with it.
Really?
I mean, it depends on what your setup is. Like, but like mine's like on the desk right there, and then like I mean, if I walk to the very edge of my play space, I've still probably got 2 feet of slack.
Okay.
I mean, the amount of space you use is not huge. At least not. I mean, I could probably go.
Well, it's like 100 square feet, right? 10 by 10. Is that what they recommend?
Well, I don't know feet.
Or 60 square feet, I think is what it was.
No, I don't think so. Like my play space is 2.2 meters by 2 meters. And then I think the
You're going all metric on me.
And then well, that's what it says. I don't convert that shit. It's just like it's meters. I know how big it is.
Yeah.
But and then I think the maximum
that's 10
is
by 6. That's like 60 square feet.
Maximum is like I think it's 3 by 5 by 3 by 5. So basically, it's like the size of a parking space.
Yeah.
That's not too far.
Yeah. That's not bad.
And I understand why they have so much cableage, because like that's a lot of data going back and forth.
It is, yeah.
I mean, a wireless version would be cool, but like I don't feel like I'm gonna buy a new one just to have it wireless. I'll buy like whatever their next power.
But are you
jump
pissed
is.
off that you spent so much and you could have waited? I mean, chances are it's probably not coming out till Q4 next year.
No, I'd rather be playing it now.
Yeah. So you're okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's typical iterations on hardware.
I mean, when
you
buy something like
you
this,
know it when you buy it.
You buy something like this, you know you're going to get left in the dust relatively quickly.
I also wonder if the fidelity of the wireless version will ever match the wired version.
That's a good question. I mean,
how do you send that much data wirelessly without there being some kind of lag or a depreciation?
I think you could with like a 5 gig. I mean, the question becomes like interference with other devices and the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I mean, if it hooks into the Wi-Fi network I have, it probably would have the bandwidth to do that. I don't know. I'm not a tech guy, so I don't know how that's working. I mean, it's cool that they're going to do that, and so like maybe like generation 3, I'll get one, and it'll be wireless, and it'll be great. Right now, it's not quite. In fact, the only time I think the cords have been a problem was playing a game called Raw Data, which has you're fighting. It's one of those things where you stand in the center and like cyborgs come at you. But like
any game where you're going to spin around.
Yeah, but like basically like cover pops up and like you kind of have to hide behind cover and pop up and shoot and so. And there have been a couple times when like I just instinctively looked over my shoulder at the thing that was coming in the wrong direction and the wire was in my way and I was able to get around it. But like it would have been nice there. And also in games like that, you are going to try to lean on the cover. There's nothing there. Don't do that.
Did you fall?
No, I didn't fall, but like it was a couple times when I'm just like you're coming up over the desk thing, and you want to like lean your hands on the desk to steady them while you're shooting the guy, and like there's okay, that's
that is great. The power of VR right there.
No
Even though
was,
you know it, like
yeah.
you just can't help yourself.
Oh, the pool table one is this. You will try to lean on the pool table, and there is no pool table. Every once in a while.
Conceivably, you could just set up like props.
Yeah. Well, that's what places like like the Void and those like VR experience like centers are doing. Where like when you run through the mazes and stuff in those games,
there actually are walls there.
Yeah, the area you're in is an exact mirror of what you're seeing. So it's like,
then what's the point?
Well, because it's not you're
just
running.
Take it off and just.
Well, no, because you're running through like a dungeon or whatever, and the walls in the area are just white.
Right.
So it's not decorated or anything. It's just, but if there's like a table there in the VR thing, there will be a table there in reality. So if you go to touch it. It's there.
Gotcha.
It's a pretty cool experience, but like that doesn't work with the Vive unless you do a lot more furniture moving than I'm willing to do.
I'm surprised that you're okay with this. I thought you might be pissed off.
I guess I might be if like the wires had been a problem for me, but they haven't been.
Maybe they offer some kind of a trade-in thing where you can send in your wired one if you want, and they knock off $400 off of the wireless or something.
Maybe. I mean, I would like them to do that for like the first upgrade, where, the first significant power jump.
Right.
I would like some kind of trade-in program. Because it looks like, I mean, it's like because you have to get rid of everything when you do. I mean, it's not like you can just sell the headset to somebody. You got to give them the box and the cords and the control. I mean, everything has to go together.
Yeah.
So like when I upgrade the Vive, I'm going to need to get rid of everything I have now because all that stuff will be useless.
Right.
At that point,
it'll be obsolete.
Unless I'm just going to hand it all off to somebody else, and I'd rather kind of have some kind of sort of trade-in thing. I mean, take the cell phone model a little bit, or the used car model at this price range. Why not? So that'd be nice. But like, no, it doesn't like freak me. It's the same thing where like there were rumors about the streamlined version or whatever. It's like I don't find it bulky or uncomfortable. I don't, except for it's hot but I don't think that this new model is going to solve that problem. So ask me again when they come out. It's like this one has an internal cooling fan for your face. And it doesn't have the focus problems on the edges, which it will because I think there's no way to avoid that right now. And the screen door effect. The screen door effect is a problem.
I think that's probably going to be a problem for a while, too.
Probably. Yeah, the things that I really pull out is like these are the things that sort of mar the experience for me. I don't see them being fixed within less than 5 years. That's a next-gen thing, I think.
Okay, let's talk about a kind of small game you've been playing. A Japanese game called Attack on Titan, based on
another Koei game,
another Tecmo Koei game, based on a popular Japanese manga. They've also made feature-length films in Japan based on the property
and anime
that looked awesome, but ended up being terrible.
No, they're terrible.
The movie trailers for that movie looked awesome. I was like,
although the people that did those effects are doing the effects in the new Godzilla movie.
Oh, really?
It's being directed by the guy who directed Evangelion.
Oh.
Shin Godzilla. Which is like
I've seen the trailer.
Yeah, the new trailer just came out. I hate the Godzilla design with like the weird toothy mouth and the tiny little arms and stuff.
It's kind of the Japanese Godzilla, though, isn't it?
No,
really.
It's I am a Godzilla nut, and it's a very different design in the sense that he's got this weird sort of Glasgow smile thing going on, and he's sort of like falling apart and like has like muscle. Like he's basically like more of a direct like he's been irradiated. He sort of has like. He looks a lot more like something that came out of the Hiroshima explosion, basically, is what they're going for. And his arms are like shriveled and sort of useless. And so he does look more like the traditional design in terms of kind of his shape, but the details are super weird. And that's part of what they're going for. But just as a Godzilla fan, I'm like, oh, God, he looks weird and sick. And But judging by that trailer, this might be the best cinematography in any Godzilla movie ever. Like some of the shots in that trailer are amazing. Like
the last Godzilla in the West was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it. Okay, but it was also like, I remember everyone on the American Godzilla movie from 2014 were like, oh my, like Godzilla was barely in the movie. I'm like, yeah, welcome to Godzilla movies.
That's the way it is.
You sit through an hour of crappy story and acting you don't care about to see Godzilla for 20 minutes. That's a Godzilla movie. Like
that's how it works.
That shit costs money. And the Godzilla scenes in that Godzilla movie, delivered.
Yeah, they sure
I like
did,
I
yeah.
like that a lot.
They were amazing.
And they'll probably be pretty much. Apparently, early reviews on this are pretty much the same. It's like 90% of this movie takes place in boardrooms.
Right.
Like it's just people arguing over what to do.
How they're going to stop Godzilla.
Yeah, and then like
And then
you
they
get
go
a
out
little
and try
bit
to
of
do
Godzilla.
it,
Yeah.
and then they fail, and Godzilla
But
beats up a bunch of monsters.
But the
and-
Godzilla scenes are apparently really, really cool.
Awesome. So let's talk about Attack
So
on
Attack
Titan.
on Titan is more based on the anime series
Yeah.
than the first season of the anime series, because the season 2 has not come out yet. Years and years later, people, I think, early
Wait,
20
is it anime or manga or both?
both.
That's what I thought. Okay.
It wasn't as with most of these things. It was a manga, and then they
An anime.
turned it into an anime, and then the manga was really far behind, and they didn't want to like just make up stuff for the anime, so they're sort of waiting for that to catch up. And so there's been delays and delays and delays. I think the original season 1 came out like 3 years ago or something. And they just earlier this year announced like season 2 will be delayed to next year. And it's just sort of like one of those things like, oh, is Attack on Titan out yet? Nope. Yeah, okay, I knew that, yeah. So, and in the meantime, they made 2 live-action movies out of it.
Yeah.
So
Where does the video game fall
video
into
game
that
is season
timeline?
1, basically.
Okay.
It just covers season 1 of the anime, very much of the anime.
And what is a quick synopsis of season 1?
Well, spoilers, if you haven't seen season 1, but basically, it's either the far future or the far past or another world, whatever. And at some point, 100 years ago, giant humanoid monsters called Titans who look like they're giant, naked, like vacant, staring-looking creatures with big, weird grins, and they eat people. All they do is walk around and grab people and eat them. And so to defend themselves, humans built 3 giant walls, 50-meter tall walls.
Sound familiar?
With none of them are called the Trump Wall, oddly enough. And there's like one in the middle, and like one right in the middle, and then another one, and then a third one on the outside. And for 100 years, this worked just fine. And then after 100 years, one day, a thing called the Colossal Titan appears out of nowhere, which is the famous, like the one with no skin,
Yeah.
And it's taller than the wall, and it just walks up to the wall and kicks the door in, and all the Titans just start flooding in, and it and humanity loses like a third of its territory, has to fall back to the second wall. And this kid, Aaron.
Now, is the second wall taller than the first wall?
No, they're all the same size, I think, but they just further in.
Okay.
So the center is like where the king and all the elites live,
Right.
and the second is like sort of like the markets and stuff, and then the outside was like farms and the peasant class more. And it's all sort of like a medieval Europe sort of like visual aesthetic.
Well, you said peasants, so
Right. so
that's a good clue.
So there's not really. It's not futurist. It's anything. It's just like everything, and like the look. It's like everything looks very European and very fairy tale-ish in terms of like the house design and stuff.
Yeah.
And then like the main character is this kid named Aaron, who Aaron Yeager, who his mom is killed in the initial invasion. And he actually sees her get bitten in half. The first episode of this thing is brutal.
It
Like
sounds
you're like, oh my god! I mean, you just see these like, and the Titans have these big grins on it.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like,
really
there's
creepy.
like, and it's very gory and very. It's really offsetting, and like I thought it was great. Like I loved the first like few episodes of the season, and then it becomes a standard anime, and I didn't care anymore.
Right.
But so he basically vows to
Avenge her death.
to kill all Titans, to avenge her death. So he joins along with his friend Mikasa, who's sort of like a surrogate family member. There's a weird thing in this where I don't know if the manga ever went anywhere further with it, but she's like one of the last Asian people left in the world.
Okay.
Where like she's like either Asian or half Asian, and she's one of the last Japanese people or something ever, and everyone else is supposed to be like Western.
Gotcha.
Because the Titans wiped out the world so horribly. And a couple times that comes up. I don't know if there's anything made of that later. But so she's like the super power, like the biggest badass of the whole group, and so she joins the military with him to protect him, and their loser, like smart, brainy, nerdy, weak friend joins the blonde kid, joins them too, Armin. And so the first part is kind of like about them going through training. It's kind of like a Full Metal Jacket thing. And so the game starts there with training. It shows you his mother getting eaten, and then he swears to destroy the Titans, and then you start doing training. And
Is it really gory whenever she gets eaten in the game?
No, they cut away from it.
Do they?
I mean, they don't cut away from all of it. There is some gore in this game.
Yeah.
And
Is
also,
it rated M or T?
It is M.
It's M, okay.
And I think that's mainly because you are cutting limbs off the Titans.
That makes sense.
The limbs, and of course the limbs grow back. But like, so you're being trained. So while it is medieval, one of the big hook of this is that they have this thing called I think it's called omnidirectional motion gear or something like that. You can tell how much I care about the specifics on this game.
They can fly, right?
No, they've got these giant like sword scabbards, but they have gas-powered grappling hooks in them. So it's like Spider-Man. They shoot out grappling hooks and pull themselves along. It's like Spider-Man or like Just Cause, I guess, wouldn't be a bad, but it moves much faster than that.
Yeah.
So basically, you can like traverse around with these things like Spider-Man through the city, and then the trick with the Titans is any damage you do to them grows back, including cutting limbs off. The only way to kill them is to slice them on the back of their neck. And so the way they do it is you use these things to fly around with the grappling hooks, and then you grapple onto the Titan, and you swing around and you zoom in on them, and you use these two swords to just cut the back of their neck as you pass them, and that's how you kill them. So this is like super fast-paced, and like you're flying around in midair all the time, and like and the way they do it on this is you can lock
like
onto
aerial Dynasty Warriors.
Sorta, or what's that one they did? Tukiden or
Taukiden.
Taukiden. Like there's a lot. I think they built this on top of kind of what they established, because there's a lot more flying in that game, and I can definitely see the kind of the evolution there, and so you can lock on to each like limb or whatever and zoom in on that and like cut them off to weaken them, and then you go for the neck, and you like, and here's the thing, like they kind of nailed it, like in terms of control. I really didn't expect them to do it. I got the game because I'm a fan and my girlfriend likes it too, so we were like, oh yeah, we'll play Attack on Titan, and like it really feels good.
Wow.
It's fun to play. Like,
that's great.
Because like they throw you into the whole city, you know, kind of Dynasty Warrior style, and like, you know, guys will throw up like people will shoot up like flares to like say that they need help, and you jump over there and kill the Titans that are trying to attack them. And like you know, in the game, in the show, it's like killing a Titan is like a big deal, and early on it is like this, but after a while, it's like if you're not killing like 50 Titans in a level, you're not even getting like an A ranking.
Oh,
you know?
wow!
And it's like,
holy cow!
And you can take these things down so fast.
The show a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you murder hundreds of these things, but like,
do they all look different, or
there's tons. I mean, there's at least like 50 different ones in the game, and they all go in like a gallery, so you can go look at them. And I think they all have the developers' faces. I think that's where they go. There's a tradition with them where like the production animation team puts their faces on the Titans in the show, and the guy who does the manga, the guy who created it, the guy who does the manga, like I think he puts like his friends in and coworkers and stuff in there as them, which is not very flattering because they're horrifying. Like. It really, and there's a lot of good shots of them. Like they if you like Attack on Titan, you will like this game. Like,
so the game sounds awesome, but it's not getting amazing reviews. So there's got to be some caveats here. What are they?
Well, it is the same thing over and over. Like you never fight anything other than Titans.
That's it.
At least not so far.
Oh wow.
So like
so it's like a boss rush game, basically.
Kinda. Like, so I mean, there's little Titans that take one. You know, you can only hit them in the neck, and that's it. There's bigger ones and bosses and special ones called abnormals that you have to like take on in a certain way. But like you are doing the same thing over and over in the sense of like you know scoot up, lock on, find what you want to hit, zoom in on the thing, hit them. But like there's a lot of like the variations are like all very rooted in the world. So it's like, you know, you can do like a boost with your gas canister thing to like give you some more punch to when you hit something. So there is like some skill, and like it's kind of going to be like one of those. It's like a character action game in the sense that like there are going to be people that are really frighteningly good at this game.
Yeah.
You know, with some practice, people are going to be like, oh, here I beat this level in like 15 seconds and killed 40 Titans and didn't even pause to look at anything. You know, I think you're going to see some amazing, you know, playthroughs on this eventually. But in the same way that Dynasty Warriors and all these other, you know, Muso games are, it's the same thing over and over again with the pieces rearranged. So if you love the property, it's going to be, just like with any superhero kind of thing, like it captures that element really well. Like if you already are invested in this property, you're going to be like, wow, they nailed this.
Arguably, most people
Yeah,
are not.
I feel like most people don't know what this is outside of a certain niche circle.
Yeah.
I certainly don't expect any random person on the street to know what Attack on Titan is.
Yeah.
I didn't. Before I saw it, I thought it was like a space opera about attacking Titan, the moon of Saturn, because it's such a weird title. But it turns oh, it's a medieval giant monster wall breaking Spider-Man sword thing. Like it's just like it's super weird, but something about it just works because it's like some of the stuff is so out there that it combines all these weird things. Like so, it feels like familiar, but also like nothing you've ever seen before. And I think they really, I was very skeptical because they had a 3DS game that didn't come to the West, and it was awful.
Yeah.
But this one, Koei nailed this. I think it is the same, Omega Force. I think it is the same guys that do the Dynasty. They nailed
that's
this.
really them breaking out of their mold to create combat that's in the sky.
I was like, oh, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. But no, they found a way to make it work. And it's not Spider-Man 2 level traversal. It's pretty, it's pretty janky in places, especially when sometimes you'll hit the corner of a building and you'll have to kind of continually pop. Because that's the thing is one of the things that saves the Spider-Man or prototype thing where when your sort of swingy traversal fails, you can run up walls or something to kind of get back on track or jump really high. That's not in this. So you have to sort of rely on the grapple hook thing. And it does play pretty honest with the grapple hooks. If there's no buildings around or trees or whatever, you can't.
So it's not like
continue.
Spider-Man where you can't see
you're not hooking onto the sky.
The cloud.
No. And a little thing will pop up with the hook with the X through it. That's just you can't grapple right now. You're in a plane area.
Full price game?
Yes.
Would you recommend it at full price?
If you're a big fan.
Only.
What
if you just love Dynasty Warriors games?
Wait. Yeah.
Because I'm guessing it'll be down to $39.99 within 2 months.
Probably. Yeah.
It's not going to set the sales charts ablaze.
I wouldn't set aside anything else you're playing right now to play this unless you are a diehard Attack. If you are a diehard Attack on Titan fan, you're already playing it.
Yeah, you're already nodding your head watching.
I don't need to tell you. But it is much better than I expected it to be. I wouldn't. In fact, I would probably give it a B.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid for a license that doesn't have a lot to it in terms of what you can make a game out of. It does recreate pretty much every major scene. And there is a variation in the fact. Again, sorry, spoilers. One of the things early on that gets revealed is that Eren can turn into a Titan. And he just runs around beating the living shit out of these things. And so periodically you can turn into the Eren Titan and run around and just punch the hell out of it and just destroy buildings.
Does that work okay?
It works okay. It's very auto-targety. So if you are near a Titan and you press the punch button, you will hit them. Right. And you'll probably also destroy a house in the process. But it's kind of got a nice sort of, Ultraman sort of feel to it. It sort of made me think hey, if that Godzilla game that came out last year was more like this, it would have been reviewed much better.
Yeah.
It's more dynamic and more fast-paced. But again, it's just building on what the anime shows you and taking it and running with it. And I'm surprised. Again,
sounds like you're pleasantly surprised.
I am very pleasantly surprised, and not in kind of a with Godzilla. I'm I played this for 30 hours because I'm a fan and I'm too stupid. Too stupid to put it down because they have all the right sound effects in it. This is more wow, this is actually pretty fun to play.
Yeah.
And the way you swing around and then you can lock on and you sort of move around and target in. You let go of everything and you start to zoom in, and then you get the kind of the zoom thing that tells you oh, you're at max speed, and now you can hit the sword. There's a lot of timing. And a lot of there's a lot more player control over what's happening than I expected there to be. I thought it would be a much more auto-playing game, and it isn't.
And quick time events and stuff like that.
And early, eventually, it starts to get pretty hard. When the Titans swarm you, if a Titan walks between you and the Titan you're locked onto, it will break your line.
Oh.
So you can't just swarm through these guys. You have to sometimes I've had to pull back and find another way at them.
Interesting.
And I'm just oh, there's actually, they're not just letting you coast here.
Yeah.
There's a couple places where they're not messing around. And I also really enjoy that, there's the story mode and sort of the free play mode. And the all upgrades and experience points and level ups and everything are shared between them, and all upgrades for your gear and everything. There's a big gear crafting system in there. all universal. You
good.
you don't have to do it per character. It's
Good,
everyone gets the same gear. You know, your maximum upgrade, what you've chosen, it all is persistent across all modes. So at no point do you have to just grind the same thing over and over again, which I know you would have had to do if Koei had made this like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a pretty auspicious debut. I'm sure we'll probably get a sequel at some point.
Yeah, if they ever make season 2, I'm sure I'll make another one.
All right, let's talk about...
It gives me a little hope for that Berserk one they're making.
Yeah. Maybe they're finally starting to turn over a new leaf.
Maybe.
I don't know, though.
That's a hard one to believe.
That's
but
an old leaf that's been lying there for a long time.
Don't touch that leaf. It'll just
crumble apart. Yeah. All right, let's talk about World of Warcraft Legion. Came out this week. I played World of Warcraft a total of like 4 hours my entire life. I'm not even exaggerating. I played 4 hours ever.
You played
a lot.
I played a fair amount. It was
back in the G4 days.
Yeah, right before Wrath of the Lich King came out. Morgan decided that we're all going to play World of Warcraft, so we were playing World of Warcraft. And I played a Ret Paladin back before they blew those out of the water. And we played through the end of Burning Crusade and most of Wrath of the Lich King. I got to the level cap. We played a bunch, played all the dungeons. We did some of the raids. We did, I felt like I'd experienced what there was to experience. I, got the top gear or whatever, and I felt like, well, I played World of Warcraft, and so I think I played for probably 200 hours around there. And then Cataclysm came out, and we're like, all right, Cataclysm, let's go. I had my my Worgen picked out, Worgen Meb, with her permission.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's go. And then we played for like one night, and everyone's like,
this sucks.
Let's go away. I don't know what it was about Cataclysm, but we all at the same time simultaneously was like, nah.
I don't like this. Yeah.
Like, yeah. And
so
I don't know.
Based on that, do you have any interest in Legion?
No.
None?
I've heard it's pretty good, and there's people I know who are playing it again for the first time in a long time that say it's really good, but I don't care.
One guy apparently hit the level cap in like 6 hours.
Yeah, well, the level cap is, that's where the game starts, as they always say.
Well, when you hit the level cap?
Yeah, pretty much. Like a lot of people play the MMO seriously, like, and consider the end game to be the real game, basically. Yeah. Like, the level cap is just to get you. It's like the Final Fantasy 13 thing. After 40 hours,
it gets
good. But, I mean, they did do a thing like a month or two ago where it was like, 7 days free playtime, and you get, like, Warlords of Draenor or whatever for free. Or whatever. Basically, it's like, we'll get you, for free, we'll get you all the way up to speed with expansions if you, and encourage you to buy Legion, And so, like,
it's just like the drug dealer model.
Right. So I signed up, and against, so I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do it. So I went, I got 7 days free. I logged in. Found all my characters again because they're all on. I mean, what server? And they didn't show what you had on what server. So I'm like, I think we're on this one or that one. So I found all my characters and logged in.
What do you mean? If you couldn't remember where your character was, you would just never be able to find it?
Well,
that seems insane.
Well, they're supposed to show you, like, here's the server you've got, in like a little parenthesis, like 4, to show you've got 4 characters, but that wasn't popping up for some reason.
Oh, wow.
So I had to just sort of remember what servers we were on, and I think I texted a couple people, I'm like, what were we up? What servers do we play on in World of Warcraft 7 years ago? Do you remember that? And so I found them on, I logged, and it's just like everything has changed so much that I don't even know. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Every sort of imaginable level up point has been refunded to me, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like,
why did that happen?
And now it's all like super accessible. It's like, you want to play a dungeon? Here's the dungeon screen. Here's every dungeon in the game. Click it. We'll put you in a. It's I'm like, wow.
They kind of had to do that.
Yeah,
though,
sure.
Because it had gone so far down the rabbit hole, and it had become so meta that only people who had subscribed to it for years and years would even know what the hell to do.
And I kind of ran around, and I logged in on all my characters and poked around and like looked at the character creation stuff and all that. I was like, and I closed it, and I didn't look at it again.
Sayonara.
That was it. I'm just like, I don't want to start a new character, and my old characters are almost like strangers to me now. So I'm just like, I just don't want to. I don't care. And also, I've really hit the point with the MMO thing where it's just like, MMOs aren't fun.
I don't think they've ever been
The actual
fun.
gameplay is not fun. There's a social experience, the community thing, yeah. But in terms of like just playing the game, like I've never found one that I thought was fun to play outside of, I think I enjoyed SWTOR as its own game for the most part, but even that had a lot. I mean, once they got rid of all the weird grind, once they changed it about 1.5 years or 2 years ago so you could play SWTOR, just do the story missions and hit the level cap and just you never had to do side stuff.
Right.
That was great. Because you still had to do all this stuff where, like, okay, I got to spend like 10 minutes driving through this MMO area to get to the next thing. There's a lot of crap like that. But the fact that I didn't have to do 14 side missions to be strong enough to, like, do the next story mission was great. But I could not possibly give less of a shit about the story in Warcraft. So, like, to the point that I didn't, when I saw the Warcraft movie, I didn't realize half those characters were established characters. I'm like, who are these people? I don't know. I don't know the lore of Warcraft. Right. I don't care about that.
It's pretty complicated.
It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Which is probably why most people don't know. I mean, when was the last time you looked at the name of the guy who was giving you a quest in Warcraft?
Right.
I mean, it's like, no. Like, you need what? You need how many bull testicles? Great.
I don't know. I don't know what your name is.
What was it? Bear asses is sort of the standard sort of fetch thing. Okay.
Do you think that this has any chance of rejuvenating the WoW audience?
Not tremendously here, but I bet it'll be a big hit in China.
That's probably right. Where the movie also did very well.
Yeah, where the audience is.
So are you going to play it at all?
No.
No.
I don't plan to.
What if this weekend someone who you used to play WoW with calls you and says, hey, Matt, I've been playing Legion and I love it. You still won't give it a go?
Not unless everybody else comes with me. Like,
as in like 10 people
yeah,
or something
it was
like that?
It was fun because there was a bunch of us every night playing together.
Yeah.
And like once that stopped, like that was the end. That's not interesting beyond. I guess why I'll play SWTOR because it's basically a single player game now. Whereas like Warcraft, like I don't want to just wander by myself through that game. That's not interesting.
I don't blame you.
And like and the other thing about those games is like I don't think the moment to moment gameplay in those games that game is fun. So like the only thing keeping me going is like the social experience, and frankly I don't care enough to sort of try to I could probably get people together to do that, but I don't want to. You know, like I just feel
it's
like
a big hassle.
Yeah,
for minimal payoff.
And I know eventually I'll get tired. I'll have something else I want to play tonight or that night or whatever, and I don't want. But then you're trapped in that thing where it's like, you're trapped in that thing. Well, I can't let everybody down. I'd rather be playing whatever, but I got to.
Gaming guilt.
And that's no way to live.
It's not. No. I kind of figured. I just wanted to get your impression because I knew Matt was a big WoW player back in the day. Titanfall 2 tech test weekend 2.
No go.
No go. We talked about it on the show last week.
I was shocked by this. I thought I just missed the window. I tried to download it Saturday morning, and I couldn't find it. And I thought, like, oh, they must have closed that off real fast.
Oh, well, they did. So what happened?
Much faster than I expected.
Yeah, so Matt and I will never get to play the tech test, because basically to play the Titanfall 2 tech test, you had to have downloaded it on the first weekend. So I was out of town, couldn't download it when it was up. Just like you, I went in, I think it was Saturday morning, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to sit here and play Titanfall all afternoon. And I could not find it to download. I'm like, what the heck? What is going on? So I start like looking on like xboxlive.com, and like I go look like on I cannot find it to download anywhere. And as it turns out, if you did not download it the first weekend, you could not play it the second weekend, which, based upon all the changes that they've made to this game, based upon player feedback from week 1 and the changes they made for week 2, I cannot believe they would not let new people in, because these other people who played weekend 1, they're already soured. Like, either they loved it or they hated it, but either way, they've already built an opinion around it. The chances of completely changing their opinion or getting them to reverse any messaging they put out on social media when they said they didn't like it in the first week, how many people are going to come back the second week and say, I like it a lot better now? Like, hardly anyone. Like, people like to complain.
Or they're just not even going to load it up.
Right. Or we don't give it a chance. Well, here's Matt, 2 clean slates. Matt and I were 2 clean slates who could go into this second weekend, our minds completely wide open and open to the game being awesome, and we're shut out of the whole thing. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. And there was even a thing, it might have been an error, I don't know, because there was a thing where I was like, how do you get into this thing? It's like, okay, yeah, because right on the tweet, I think, it's like, search for Titanfall, look, find the tech test one, load it up, download it, and play it. I'm like, the way they phrased it really sounded like you could do that if you hadn't played it before.
Right.
Because if you had played it before, why would you need to go find it and download it?
There was no messaging on their official site saying you cannot play this anymore.
No.
Nothing. Like, they would still say, go here, do this, have fun. And it was gone. So,
because that's what I was doing. I was searching, because I remember I read that, so I'm like, okay, so I'm searching for Titanfall 2. There's Titanfall 2. There's Titanfall 2 Deluxe Edition. Where's that was the only thing that came up.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, did I miss? I figured I did something wrong.
Yeah.
But apparently, no.
Yeah. So after
they did something wrong.
They did. Yeah. So
say.
After all the negative press they got for the first weekend, they did not give themselves a chance to recover from it. by getting new people in who don't have like these negative impressions of the first weekend, who could come in and just be like, I love this. Or, I don't know what you're talking about. This is awesome.
Or like, hey, I didn't know the first one happened. I'll play it this time. And it's like, that doesn't seem like a very far-fetched scenario, especially because, like, you know, they didn't put it up on the front of PSN. It was like, hey, come play Titanfall 2 tech test. Right? It was like something you had to know about.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Like,
which is the way a lot of these big betas are for whatever reason. Like, a lot of times they don't get any promotion on, like, the front page of
unless
PSN.
there's something you get for pre-ordering.
Or unless it's a Sony beta. And then, they, of course, it's
Uncharted.
Yeah, there it was. Like, you couldn't miss it. Like, you didn't have to go to the store to see it. There's, like, a little tile that, like, popped up on, like, your PlayStation 4 home screen telling you about it.
It's like, hey, I see you're playing Killzone. How about you play Uncharted instead? It's like, what do you...
And look, I'll be the first one to admit that, yeah, I'm salty I didn't get to play it. I'm pissed off I didn't get to play it. And that may be feeding into my ire a little bit here, but it just, to me, it doesn't make any sense from the perspective of Respawn or EA.
No. I mean, I'm not pissed that I didn't get to play it because I have enough things to play and enough things to do. But that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't to me either.
I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to shut people, especially after you clearly have, like, turned a lot of people off. Why if you apparently have done some improvements and tweaks, if you wouldn't want to invite new people in to see how good it is now.
Yeah, because also the other thing too you got to figure is a lot of people played that first weekend and were like, I'm not playing this again. And then in the second week, you have less people even playing it to get feedback on all these changes and improvements that you made. So,
and a lot of people heard about it, I'm sure, for the first time after everyone started complaining about it on Reddit and other places.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who hadn't played it. Or, I didn't really look at it because I didn't think anything was going to be particularly interesting. It was like, okay, it's Titanfall. I know what Titanfall is. Why do I care about it? And it turned out it was not Titanfall. It was very different. So, like, and then so after that whole thing, I'm like, oh, now I really want to play this because, like, apparently it's like not just like a reiteration of what I've already played. It sounds like there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So I want to see what it feels like and what they did with it now and how it changed. Based, from the feedback that people had given before, and like I couldn't do it. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Boo to Respawn, boo to EA, but
or whoever made that choice.
Our next topics may actually bring even more boo to EA.
Yeah.
So this week, Ryan McCaffrey, I believe is his name. He is an IGN editor who has traditionally worked on their Xbox channel. I think he launched like that Xbox website, fanboy site, or fan site that IGN bought back in the day. What was it called?
Team Xbox?
Team Xbox, yeah. I think he was the guy who started Team Xbox like way back in the day. But anyway, he scored an interview with Peter Moore from EA. And if you guys don't know him, Peter Moore has been a fixture in our industry for a really, really long time. He was working at Sega when I first got into the industry. He was working there when I worked.
The Dreamcast.
He launched the Dreamcast. I was working just a floor underneath Sega whenever he was working there. I've known Peter for almost 2 decades now. That's
I was on the floor above.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, it's crazy. So I got a lot of love for Peter. I'm not going to deny it. Like, I have a lot of respect for the guy. I've known him for forever. He is a really, really down-to-earth, cool, good guy.
Which is pretty rare in the executive wings.
With the pay grade that guy is on, it is extremely rare. In fact, I would say he probably is my favorite game executive ever.
Yeah, and especially as someone like, if you recognize him, even if you're just like a random game player, like if you recognize him and go up to him, he will talk to you. Like he'll be happy to meet you.
His memory is incredible. So, first of all, I saw him at Pactor's party. I had not seen him since I left GT like 3 years ago. Immediately, hey, Shane. I'm like, hey. Like, I really never dreamed he would recognize me still. I never in a million years. Like, I almost looked away when he walked by because I didn't want it to be awkward, like me looking at him like, hey, you know me. His mind is like a trap, and he proves it. He does this amazing interview with Ryan McCaffrey from IGN. It's like an hour and 15 minutes long. If you have not watched it yet, go watch it. His memory is like a steel trap. He talks about everything. Like, first he started working in, like, running shoes. Then he worked for Adidas and Puma and a couple other companies. And then eventually he got in at Sega. And he tells the whole story about what happened with Sega after the Saturn, launching the Dreamcast, the midlife of the Dreamcast, going on a conference call with 600 people to tell everyone at Sega that they were killing the Dreamcast, starting to line up all those third-party partnerships that Sega still has to this day. It is just fascinating. He talks about him getting, like, railed in South Park. I mean, he just talks about everything. It is an incredible interview. Mad props to Ryan McCaffrey. He was well prepared and did a great job. But even more props to Peter Moore. Like, you can just see how freaking smart the guy is. He remembers all these little anecdotes and stories from, like, 20 years ago that, like, I didn't remember at all until he mentioned them. Like, just off the cuff, just like bam, 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 bam. Like, I was blown away by this interview. But instead of everyone praising the interview for how great it was, what everyone's really talking about was a part of the interview. Ryan asked him about remasters and how EA has this huge back catalog of games that it could just remaster, and there's all this money sitting on the table it won't take. And earlier, Peter was talking about how EA had been voted like the world's worst corporation or whatever, like all those years in a row, and how they set up this task force to help with that, and that basically what they did is they changed their whole mantra to the gamer first. And how every time they're in a meeting and they make a decision, the last thing they do before they walk out of the room is this better for the gamer? Is this something, if I were a gamer, I would be okay with?
And isn't that interesting? Because I remember when that was happening, where it was like, basically an internet crusade to get EA to win that worst company,
right?
The golden
really
poop.
Dirty, yeah.
Somewhat, but at the same time, like, okay, so EA won that, like, I think 2 years in a row, and that was right around the same. That was right around the same time as, like, the financial crisis, and like there were banks and mortgage houses.
Yeah, he mentions that in the interview.
And all that.
He's like, wait a minute, all these people like robbed America, and we get voted the worst company in America.
But think about it, like, what's the difference between EA winning that and those guys winning that?
Well, there's a big difference. EA never ruined people's lives.
No, right, but no, what's the actual difference there? EA
I don't know what
noticed.
you're going for. Oh, EA noticed.
EA noticed. You think Fannie Mae or Bank of America, you think they would care if they wanted to? But EA actually, it did something.
EA noticed because of fanboys. There are no, like, banker fanboys. There might be.
Oh, there are.
Would never want to meet one.
They would never care. Right. Like, those other companies would, Comcast is not going to react to being given. They're just going to be like, screw you, whatever.
Because you got NeoGAF who harps on about stuff like that, and, like, a lot of industry people go to NeoGAF.
But I think it's interesting to note that, like, while it felt stupid and juvenile at the time, in the end, the only company in that lineup that might have actually changed themselves based on that kind of feedback actually was the one who won and changed themselves.
You're right. So I guess in that sense it actually worked out,
it was actually a pretty good thing. It's I don't know if EA is succeeding at that goal in terms of what you're saying about is this good for the gamer.
I think it's doing a pretty good job.
It's doing better than several others. I think Mass Effect remasters would be good for the gamer. But
we haven't got to that yet. So the big story that's come out of this interview is that Peter Moore, once and for all, said that they are not going to remaster Mass Effect. And last week, the rumor was that they were. That there's all these rumblings in the industry that they're going to make at least Mass Effect 1 remaster, Mass Effect 3 remaster.
But if you knew anybody at BioWare and mentioned that, they'd be like, well, I never heard of it. So.
But, I mean, look, the original developer hardly ever creates the remaster.
True,
although they wouldn't know about it.
They'd still have to give the assets to whoever's making it.
They would, at the very least, know about it.
And Mass Effect 1 really needs it.
It does,
I mean, if I were calling that shot, I would completely redo the whole game in the style of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
To just because it's such a different game
Beast.
interface-wise.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you should maybe put in some higher res textures and maybe controller support on the PC version. I think it's a shame that they don't want to do that.
It's funny. It's ironic because usually I am completely against remasters. So I'm like, the games just came out 5 years ago. I don't really need them to go from 720p to 900p or 1080. Like, I'd rather get a new game. This is the one case, like Mass Effect 1, where I can see how much it could be improved with a simple remaster, and I'm on board with it. And I'm getting shut down. Like, EA is just like, no. And at the same time, I do admire EA because it does know, and Peter Moore said, like, we know. We're leaving so much money on the table. It would be a fast buck, an easy buck, but he's like, we're sticking to our guns. But that's the thing. He's like, we're sticking to our guns of the gamer first. Well, if the gamer is telling you they want the remaster, are you really following that mantra at that point?
I don't think. I mean, it's like, look, I know you don't want to take away. It's like on one hand, it's like, we don't want to take away manpower from making new stuff, but at the same time, I'm having trouble thinking about what new stuff you're making.
Yeah, Star Wars, whatever.
We got Star Wars stuff in the pipeline,
all your sports sequels,
all the sports stuff.
Exactly.
Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah. which God knows what's going on with that.
Presumably Edmonton's working on something else.
They also said, there's another. They're finally going to officially announce the game that they teased quite a while ago when they first showed off Andromeda. So
and BioWare Austin's doing SWTOR. And beyond that, I'm like, maybe you might. That's true of EA forever. Though, like they've always sat on this huge back catalog of things that most of it took GOG and a lot of cajoling to get them to. It's the only reason we ever saw Wing Commander again, or Starflight, or any of that stuff. Like they don't, or how in the world have we not seen a new Mutant League game?
Yeah,
like.
People have been begging for that for forever.
What?
Especially now with like indies, like you could just create a multiplayer version of it very quickly.
Or the super popularity of Blood Bowl. Like clearly the markets, even if it was just Europe only, I feel like there's a market there.
Yeah.
It's just super weird to me that they're not willing to do. Because it's. Can you imagine how much a fucking Dead Space 1 remaster would sell?
It would sell a lot.
It'd be huge.
Yeah. But I would say that game is too early. Like it looked pretty damn good already.
It did, but like. Yeah, but I mean, when you're talking about, I would want them to take, Starflight and make a modern game out of it.
Yeah,
their
back catalog's just loaded with stuff.
Right. I would want them to take Wing Commander and make a modern game out of it. I would want, there's so much stuff back there that they're just not using.
You're right.
How is there not a Mutant League game? There was a cartoon and everything.
So it's odd. It's like I admire EA's ideals and what it's trying to do for the consumer, but I feel in this case like it's misplaced.
Also, like the end result, like the biggest example of them, like let's make do a thing for the gamer, is Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and that didn't work out for anybody.
No,
so
it wasn't a great game, and it didn't sell. So.
No, it's already down to like $19 in places.
I saw that. I'm surprised it's not down to less, to be honest. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, you should definitely watch that interview with Peter Moore.
The interview is good.
If you're like someone who's new to the industry, it will teach you so many of the important touchstone moments from the industry that if you didn't watch that interview, you'd probably never know about. But it's like
if
really...
you're new to the industry, I apologize for sitting through all this because I don't know what you're watching
for. It's really valuable information, though, if you're serious about games. It's a fascinating story, very well told by Peter. I highly recommend it. So give it a look. It's time to move on to our questions of the week. Once again, you guys did a great job of loading up the forum thread with questions. Let's see. Here's the first one from Danny Endurance. Would you rather see Joel and Ellie return in The Last of Us 2 or have new protagonists? Which of the two directions would you bet on Naughty Dog taking?
I would want new protagonists with like cameo appearances by Joel and Ellie, and I think that is what they're going to do. I don't think you're going to play as Joel. At the very least, you would play as like an adult Ellie. But I think those characters' story is told in terms of something you could stick with for like an 8-hour game. And I think I would like to see what happened maybe 5 to 10 years later in a sequel, but I would rather it be new people.
My knee-jerk reaction is I want Joel and Ellie back. I fell in love with both of those characters through the course of playing The Last of Us. I have this personal attachment to them. But then I really start to think about it, and I'm like, well, if Naughty Dog did such a good job attaching me to those characters in that amount of time, they can definitely do it again. And so then it becomes like a coin flip, because Joel and Ellie are really good characters, and they have this great relationship. There's lots of friction, and, can you put lightning in a bottle twice? I don't know.
Usually not. I feel like their story is told.
It kind of is. But
and anything else, the remainder of that story is whether or not, there's a lot of questions about what happens in the end and who knows, which of them knows what, and what Ellie is aware of and what she's willing to accept.
Right.
And I think that relationship, the only thing left to tell about the relationship is what happens in the wake of that. And so unless the game is going to be, and also like the inevitable outcome of that game, because they're going back to the place where is it his brother or his friend? Where they've got that dam.
I don't remember.
Because they go back to the dam where they've got like the electricity and they're going to restart civilization or whatever.
Yeah.
And
good luck with that one.
Have fun. But yeah, that's the thing, is the apocalypse of The Last of Us is a pretty manageable one.
It really is.
It's like, don't breathe the spores. We got gas masks. We're cool. Like, just,
Well, other than the creatures running around.
Right, but like, there's a finite number of them, and it's not as simple as like. It's not as complicated as like, anyone who, like in Walking Dead, if you die, you come back as a zombie. So like, even if someone dies of the flu, like all of a sudden you got a zombie in your camp kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is like it looks like even in Boston at the beginning of the game, it's like, it sucks, but people got a handle on it. You know, like don't go here, in here. Okay, you know, we see the spores, put the gas mask on. Like, it's a manageable thing, and eventually we'll probably win out over it. But like, the thing, you know, because like the only outcome of how you get them into a new game is like, well, something has to go horribly wrong at this place they've settled at, and like I feel like they've been through enough.
Yeah.
Like, the only remaining dramatic complication to that relationship is whether Ellie believed what he said at the end of that game.
You're right.
And I would rather find out that story from her firsthand later as sort of an interaction rather than have to play through it. I don't think there's a lot of gameplay meat on that.
I think it would sell better if Joel and Ellie.
That's true.
Joel and Ellie were
possibly true
protagonists.
But I think
who cares about that?
I
don't care about sales.
I think, well, yeah, I'm not thinking about sales, but at the same time, if Naughty Dog's name is on it, I think it's going to sell regardless.
All right, next one from Alex. Do you think we'll get a 2016 release date for the Neo during PlayStation's September 7th event? I'm thinking an October release along with PlayStation VR.
Possible, but I don't know at this point.
I'm
highly thinking
unlikely.
Q1 2017 at this point.
I think it's highly unlikely. We haven't heard any rumblings about retail. It's like we said last week on the show. It's like if somebody got a hold of the Slim, which is probably coming out either the day of this event or the day of PlayStation VR. It's one or the other. We probably would have also got somebody who got a hold of a Neo, and that has not been the case.
Launching, you know, I think there's a possibility it might launch in November, like, you know, just in time for Black Friday. But if it's not that, then next year.
I think it's probably early next year. I would also say, no matter what, do not buy a PlayStation 4 right now. I think most people have got that message, but because the sales have plummeted, it was beaten by both the Xbox One and the 3DS last month. So I think people have gotten that memo.
The writing's on the wall there.
Yeah, so but just in case, do not go and buy a PlayStation 4 right now. There is a chance that it could come out with PlayStation VR. Yeah. It's possible. I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, I wouldn't put money on that one, but it's possible.
Let's see. Next one from Ian Esquire. Any update on the next Platinum journey? Are we only going to get one every 3 to 4 months? Well, I don't think it's been on that extreme of a schedule, but it has taken much longer than anticipated. Right now, Adam is almost done with it. He emailed me like 3 weeks ago and said he was almost done. Then he sent me an email this past weekend saying that he had to put it on hold. I don't know what to tell you. It's just one of those things where
do we know what game it is?
Yeah, it's Splinter Cell. Blacklist, I think it was.
Oh. Yeah.
You know, it's not his primary job. He has another job, and he has to work his other job, and he has other projects going on. So, you know, we can't force him to get the episodes done. When he gets them done, we pay him for them, and we run them.
He's also on the other side of the world.
He is.
We can't do
literally
anything.
On the other side of the world.
We can't get to him.
Yeah, I can't go to his house with a baseball bat. But, yeah, from what he said,
bat.
From what he did say this episode wasn't quite as trying as Shovel Knight. So, I don't know what
Shovel Knight was a crazy attempt.
It really was, dude. I still feel bad for him over that. But, yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that show. I know it does suck. I wish we had an episode for you guys every week. That would be awesome. But unfortunately, with his schedule and the amount of time and dedication it takes to do that show, it's just not feasible. So that's the best information I can give you. Here's one from Rodrigo Garfius. Taking into consideration the No Man's Sky issue, why is it in gaming considered okay to permitted? Wait, I can't understand what he's saying here at all.
Why is it considered okay in games to permit false advertising when you do this with any other kind of product? It's illegal. Well, A, it's not permitted, and what you're describing is not false advertising. So. False advertising is when you put up an advertisement. An interview with an enthusiast press site is not advertising. It's marketing, it's PR, but that is not putting in an ad. The idea that like this thing, because the ad, I don't even think I've even seen any TV ads for No Man's Sky. I have never seen
a commercial for No Man's Sky. I haven't even seen like a pre-roll ad on the website.
And trailers don't matter because look. Any movie, a lot of movies, look at the trailers. A lot of the scenes in those trailers do not show up in the movie. Otherwise, someone would have sued Men in Black 1 for false advertising because half that trailer is not in the film.
Yeah.
You
nailed it. I mean, It's not an ad. There is a law that says you cannot false advertise something, but an ad is something that you pay to run. Trailers, interviews, video previews. None of that counts technically.
Yeah, an interview can be anything. They can say anything the hell they want. I mean, it's like It's just like you can't sue someone for when they're being interviewed for their new movie and be like, oh, we worked so hard on the script and all that. That's like, and you watch, you're like, there is no script. It's like, you can't turn around and be like, well, they lied in that interview. It's like, well, because no, they're you can't prove that that's not their opinion on things.
I think what's happening is that a lot of people are struggling with, like, who can I believe now? Mm-hmm. Because you have the YouTubers who are starting to get busted left and right for doing shady stuff. And now you have, like, lots of developers who, depending on your perspective, may or may not be intentionally giving false information about games. So I think a lot of people are just starting to wonder, like, where can I go and research games and learn about games and know I'm getting the truth? Like,
well, there's a simple answer to that, but nobody wants to do it. Stop pre-ordering.
Yeah.
Wait for reviews.
Yeah.
And wait for actual, not beyond reviews, wait for actual people to give you impressions. Because, like, you don't have to wait. If you'd waited on the pre-orders and shit on No Man's Sky, I think the reviews pretty much nailed this one.
They did. Here's what's happened, though, Matt, is that people have for so long tried to discount publications and their reviews. Oh, they're bought off. They're paid for. Blah blah blah.
Clearly, Hello Games' checks didn't clear that.
Yeah, I mean, but this is what the gamers have got themselves in by being distrustful of traditional publications. Like, they've shied away. They're like, oh, I'd rather have a YouTuber tell me whether a game's good or not, or I'd rather watch it myself and decide for myself. Well, what people are learning now is, like, those are not good tools to figure out whether you should buy a game or not. Like, wait for the reviews. Matt nailed it again. Like, wait for the real people who have been reviewing games all this time to review them, not some kid sitting in his basement who's been gaga over No Man's Sky for the last 12 months and, like,
or if you don't
plays it for 5 hours and says it's awesome. Like,
or wait for even impressions from non-reviewers, regular people on Reddit or whatever that buy it early.
Wait for it to come out.
If this is becoming a problem for you, let them be the canary in the coal mine. Yeah. Like, don't throw your own money after that if you don't trust it.
Because publications were, like Matt said, pretty much on the money on No Man's Sky. If you just waited for the reviews to come out, you would have known exactly what the game was.
If you read the review, if you go through the reviews for the most part, especially like the ones that gave it around, like a 6 or a 7 out of 10, or maybe a little lower. Like, I think most, even Polygon, like, I think they all pretty much. I feel like if you read those reviews, you know what you're walking into with that. Yeah,
regardless of whether you agree with the score or not.
Right.
The actual content of the reviews told you what it was like to play the game in an unbiased manner.
Yeah, and someone who loves the game, I read those reviews, I'm like, yeah, that's accurate.
I mean, start looking around at, like, where you're getting your information from, where you're getting your advice from. I mean, that's the problem. It's not even really Sean Murray's fault if you believed him. Like, It's really not. You're the sucker, so to speak, who fell for all the tricks that these publishers are using now. And those tricks are using influencers, doing sort of pie-in-the-sky interviews, concept interviews.
I mean, in a post-Peter Molyneux world,
there's no excuse.
There's no excuse for believing a man from Guilford anymore. I mean, Hello Games is in the same city as Lionhead was. I mean, come on, people.
Yeah.
It's like, that's an alien concept to me, the idea that you'd believe what's. I mean, not that I think these guys are lying. I think they're basically just they're describing features that in the end simply don't make the final cut, or if there's a problem. You don't know what's going to make it into your final Gold Master until sometimes a month or less before you actually hit that Gold Master. And while they should have probably delayed the game to next year, because I think it'll be pretty good by about this time next year.
I think it's pretty good now.
I think it's man, I played 140 hours of the damn thing. I love it, but it's like, I'm not going to tell anyone that it's an early access game I paid $60 for. I mean,
this just needs to be a lesson to, if you got burned on No Man's Sky.
Don't believe anything. I mean, back in the day, we were always told, don't believe the commercials, everything,
But see, that's not the way millennials think, though, Matt. Millennials just want to hear good news all the time. And look, I hate to, like, pigeonhole a group of people, but there are studies that prove this. I mean, it's the like button. And there's a like button, there's no dislike button. Like, younger generation people, they want to hear positive things about everything. It's just, and I kind of like that. I like that they look at life that way, and they're like, screw that negative stuff. I just want to hear the good stuff. I totally understand it. I like that. But when you adopt that attitude, and then you get burned because of it, don't blame anybody else.
Well, it's like the whole, like, the lying accusation I still think is ridiculous, because it's not lying if you think it's true when you say it.
That's true. Yeah.
That's not lying. I mean, he's wrong. in the end. But like,
it would probably do him some good to come out and say, "Look,
yeah, the lack
this
of
feature was in the game."
The
at
lack
one
of
point."
communication is really annoying to me. I mean, he hasn't tweeted anything besides patch notes in like
He's burnt out, though,
10,
man.
12. Yeah, well, you made your bed, now sleep in
You're
it.
right.
Is what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
look,
yeah.
you know, when you
and
get
all
into
it would
game
take is a little, and he won't talk to the press. I mean, just be. I almost considered emailing him myself. It's like, hey, we're sifted, and if you want to just have an honest conversation about this, we'd like to do it. Here's a screenshot of my hours played in Steam.
Oh,
like,
by the
I'm
way,
not here to nail you.
by the way, here's the Swagasaurus Rex.
Oh yeah, yeah. That would be the scandal for that. He'd find out that I'm the one who captured that, and it would all be over. It would all be over. That thing has popped up in so many things. In fact, it was in the Honest trailer. It's like anytime anyone rips on this game, my Swagasaurus shows up.
It's insane, dude.
And I'm like, I put that up because I thought it was funny.
It is funny.
That was cute.
That's why people use it, I think.
I thought it was adorable. Like,
Right.
I mean, yeah, it looks stupid, but I'm like, that's.
You didn't think it would become the poster child.
I didn't think it would become the
of
poster
making
child for
fun of
how
the game.
terrible. I thought that Jurassic Park video, which got pulled down, I think from a music claim.
Really?
Because of the Jurassic Park theme.
Oh.
I thought that was hilarious.
It was,
like,
yeah.
That was perfect. I wish I'd thought of that.
Okay, this next one kind of ties into the last one. Rewind, replay. Do you foresee a future where video game journalism no longer exists? And what will the industry be like when that happens? I think you're seeing what the industry will be like when that happens right now.
Yeah, you're
with No
not too
Man's
far
Sky.
off.
You're seeing it. You're seeing what happens when real journalists are taken out of the equation and influencers take over and marketing hype takes over and early interview.
Yeah.
You're seeing it right now. This backlash over No Man's Sky is exactly...
And that also ties, a lot of the major sites as well. They'll very positive, sort of like, oh my God, this game is amazing. But it's like the pitch is amazing.
Yeah.
But like, I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like your game trailers, the game trailers of your era, would have asked the questions that needed to be asked before.
Oh, you mean in interviews?
In interviews, preview
for
interviews.
Sure.
It's like, be like, hey, well, how does this actually work?
Yep.
What can you show us that actually in motion? Can you,
Yep.
And no one ever followed those. That was the thing, because like I never
Nobody
had,
watches interviews
right.
either.
Well, also I never
they
had
go back and watch it when they need to use them to prove their
Right.
point.
But I never
But when
had.
you publish
I never
them-
had the question of like, oh, what do you do? Like I knew what you did.
Yeah.
But like.
Digging deeper.
Digging deeper in terms of like, oh, you're going to be able to do this. Oh, really? Let's see it.
Yeah.
Like, because, okay, I understand you can't show that to us in real time because it's such, a vertical slice of that game is hard to do. But can you go back and give it, and capture some footage of it happening and
Well, the other
send
thing we
it to
did
us?
too with our content at GT is that one of our mantras was, if you say it, show it. So
Right.
if we did an interview and they would talk about something that we could not show, we just chop it out. That was
Same.
just our.
We would do
but see,
that
those
at
are
X-Play,
fail-safes
too.
you put in place to cover your ass like on down
Right.
the road. So you're not.
Well, we would do
promoting-
that at X-Play too, and I would, every time we do that interview, I'd always be, they'd say something, and afterwards, I'd have it all written down. I'm like, can we get footage of this,
And you
this,
email
this?
the PR person, and be
Yeah.
like, nope, what we gave you is all you
Yeah,
get.
and they're like, all right, well then that stuff doesn't go in the interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like to some degree, maybe that's you could also spin that, and it's like, well, we'd rather hear them lie, even if there's no footage to cover it, so that later we know they lied or whatever. But again, that was sort of a thing. When I would edit those interviews, I'd be like, well, if he said it and there's no footage for it, that means it might not even be in the game. So I'm not going to put that in because I don't want people to get disappointed by that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a difference in some people I guess would call that me shilling for them, like trying to protect them.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was mostly just like it's going to look shitty on television.
Yeah.
But like,
To answer your question, though, do we see a place for video game journalism no longer exists? No, I don't, because people are going to start valuing this again. I don't know if you watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, where he talked about like newspapers and how they're all going away, and how all these websites have been built, and social media is built on taking the content from the real journalistic outlets and then repackaging it, rerunning it. So what happens when there's no real outlet to start the information, which is
Right.
what's happening. Like,
because the sites and places that get the big hits and all the views aren't the ones who made the story.
my wife works in the newspaper industry. I'm not going to say exactly where, but she does work for a major newspaper conglomerate. And they're going through all this now. All these little papers that their affiliates or whatever are all closing because it's dead tree media and they can't survive. If major newspapers go away, it could be disastrous because already there's so much incorrect information being sent out through social media. I mean, right now, you could completely make up a story, post it on your Facebook feed, and just watch people share it. Nobody will ever check its validity.
Oh, no.
No one will ever fact check it. You could just make up anything.
Well, that happened multiple times with over the weekend. Was it over the
It happens
weekend?
every day.
Oh, it was earlier this week. It was the quarterback for the Vikings.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater got hurt his knee.
Yep.
Got carted away with an ambulance. And in the period, a couple of hours between when it happened and when they came out and had a press conference to say exactly what happened, at least three people created fake Vikings or whatever or press Twitter accounts and tweeted out like the worst like compound fracture of and they got thousands and thousands of retweets and people were like, oh my God, his leg was sticking his leg was sticking out of his ear and all there's no attempt to, and it's like the guy who tweeted this has like 4 followers and has existed since today.
I mean, you see it with politics right now, like really badly, like so many on both sides, fake stories coming out about the two candidates. If these real papers, these real outlets go away, you won't be able to trust anything. Yeah. I mean, I'm not exaggerating.
You're going to be in straight-up idiocracy territory.
I'm not being melodramatic. You will not be able to trust anything. So I think eventually people are going to realize this. They're going to get burned again. No Man's Sky is just one. It's going to happen again. These people they're not going to learn the first time. Eventually they are going to learn, and they are going to return. I don't think it'll ever go back to the way it was. You're never going to see... No. 50 huge video game websites all thriving like there was in like 2006, 2008.
But at a certain point, people are going to finally admit to them, it's like, well, why, are people always going to be correct or honest or straightforward or not exaggerating when it comes to these sort of preview things? Well, no, because that's just not how it works. And remember, always, in those situations, these people want to sell you something.
Yeah. That's like the T. Martin thing. So he gets busted being totally shady. Another YouTuber gets busted doing stuff he shouldn't be doing. He loses a ton of subscribers. And then over the course of 3 days, like some people come crawling back. And so he gets some of them back. Bottom line is he lost some. He does it again, he's going to lose more. And the more other people start getting caught for doing that kind of stuff, the less faith people are going to have in these folks. And slowly they're going to wise up and they're going to start migrating back to traditional journalism. And meanwhile, if they don't, I don't even want to know what happens.
Well, and meanwhile, with stuff like that,
can
you point to anything equivalent of that in game press before that? Because I can't think of any. I mean, there have been some publications whose opinions didn't align with mine. And
you mean as far as the T. Martin thing?
Yeah.
No, I've never seen
that. Just doesn't happen.
Like that. Yeah.
Like the worst you can say is like, well, this, I guess. Play Magazine had some moments where I'm just like, but like Play Magazine and like Dave Halverson, all that stuff, like he's crazy, but he wasn't like maliciously on the take or like.
There's been a couple like people who were exposed for reviewing games without playing them. Like there was a notorious Eternal Darkness review where a guy reviewed it for a magazine and had never played it at all.
Or the thing with like there was I remember the Tomb Raider, I think it was Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness in Maxim. And it turned out the reviewer was a freelancer who wanted to give it a 1 out of 5 or something, and the editorial staff just changed it to 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And
so
but it's like again, Maxim is not GameSpot.
It's not,
it's like don't look sideways at the mainstream publications, especially back then.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you reviewing a game? Probably there's money in it for you. But like in terms of the hardcore sites, like I don't know anything. I mean, other than like every once in a while you're like, dude, really? Like, but.
That's just a disagreement of opinion.
That's a disagreement of opinion. Yeah. And also, let's not forget, like, one of them, I think I brought him up before, but Mick LaSalle, movie reviewer for the San Francisco Chronicle, I've read him my whole life. I have never agreed with him on anything. He loves, like, pretentious, weird indie movies about, starving gay baby whales or whatever, and hates, like, popcorn, fun, blockbuster things. And, I mean, I like the occasional starving gay baby whale movie, but, like, I also love the blockbuster stuff. So when it comes to, like, the big... slam bang summer pictures, I would always read his reviews, and if he hated it, I'd go see it. Yeah. Because I would always like the things he hated.
Yeah.
And like that makes him a valuable reviewer.
For sure. But the other thing too is that you start to learn what that person likes.
He doesn't have to agree with you. You just have to know this person's take. He has to write it well enough that you can be like, well, he didn't like it, but nothing in that sounds like anything I would dislike. Like the review isn't meant to agree with you by default. The review is meant to inform you about what this person thought. And the best thing, I would like to see, if game journalism, kind of had a resurgence in that regard, I would really like to see it I would really like to see it have like more of the cult of personality that it has developed in the last 5 to 6 years, where like you know who's reviewing this game, you know who this guy is, you know who this woman is that's writing this review, and you've read enough of their stuff that you like know how they disagree and do agree with you, and like you can make an educated decision whether or not you agree with what they thought of this game in the end. You can get your bearing on that game from that writing, and that's when a review becomes really valuable, whether you agree with it or not. And that is a lesson that a lot of people that consume game reviews have not learned yet.
Okay, last question from Zet Saber. Has there been any game that changed your viewpoint on life? An example could be like Spec Ops: The Line and how they portrayed the psychological impact on soldiers.
Having trouble coming up with one of those.
Changed my life, like, emotionally?
Like, changing my worldview?
Or your worldview, your perspective on things? I mean, honestly, we probably should be able to come up with an example. If games are truly an art, we should be able to come up with at least one example of a game that changed our outlook on life.
In theory?
I mean, I would say a lot of my experiences playing games has changed my outlook on life for the negative. Dealing with, like, people and seeing these hackers, like, hacking and doing denial of service attacks for no reason whatsoever. Like, it has lowered my overall opinion of humanity.
I mean, like, there are games like, you know, like Street Fighter. I made a lot of friends around that game because of, you know, the setting it was in and the social aspect of that game, but it wasn't really the game doing that. If you're talking about, like, I played some game and it made me like think, oh, I think about life differently now. Like, I can't think of an example of that.
Super Mario 64 changed my life because that's when I realized what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. That's when I realized I wanted to become a games journalist. When I saw what games could ultimately become. And to me, that was the first game that really did that, where I looked at it and was like, oh, wow. Like, this isn't just running sideways for 5 hours anymore. Like, there's something more to this. And so that game, like, changed my trajectory. I was going to be a sports writer. I was in school to be a sports writer. And I realized I went into class one day, and I looked around, and there was, like, 15 other people in the class who wanted to be sports writers. And I knew a couple of them were better writers than me as well. And I was like, so wait a minute. In a year, I'm going to be slugging it out with these guys to try to get one of, like, 5 internships at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm like, I may make it. I don't know. I'm like, or there's this whole other thing that I love just as much as sports that there's no one in this class who's talking about it. And then that in conjunction with the N64 coming out and me kind of seeing the advent of 3D gaming and what it was going to be, that I would say, yes, that changed my life. Yeah, it changed my life trajectory at the very least. So
I think part of my problem there is that, like, if I didn't read as many books, you know, because my degree is is English literature, and like, I rarely encountered a concept or an idea in a video game that I haven't seen expressed better elsewhere.
Yeah.
At least in terms of, like, the...
No, I agree with you,
that kind
%. Yeah.
And, like, so...
That's why I don't put a lot of weight in stories in video games.
So a lot of it, I mean, even the best stories in games are kind of like, oh, that was, like, you know, reminiscent of this, or clearly it's taken from this and that, and it's kind of synthesizing into a new medium, and that's really cool. But I don't think a game has really ever come up with something that made me, like, be like, oh my god, that's never been I've never thought about that before. It's never... There have been games that...
Spec Ops is a pretty good example.
Spec Ops is a good... Well, because, like, that didn't change my life, but it did sort of change how I look at
war.
Well, I knew that about war, but it also has a comment to make about war games and how we use war in games, and I thought that was the more salient commentary in that game. It's just too bad you have to play through, like, half of a mediocre shooter to get to it.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know, I could even go back and say, you know, playing Space Invaders for the first time in the arcade, like, that changed my life. Yeah,
well, I mean, I guess, you know, I can still remember when I was 3 years old, 1979, Farrell's Restaurant, San Mateo, California, walked in and they had an asteroids machine for the first time, and I can still remember. I can see that machine from like my point of view when I first looked over and said, "What's that?" I can see that in my mind's eye. It's one of my first memories.
I saw Space Invaders at a skating rink, and that was the first time I
went
ever
over,
saw it.
and my mom
it had that awesome side cabinet art with like them holding like the lightning bolts. I was like, "Whoa!"
My mom
what's
turned the ship in Asteroids, and I just hammered the fire button.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I remember doing that. I remember that day, and I remember thinking, like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Not in terms of a career, but I'm just like, this is what I like. This is the thing that like is in my head now.
Yeah. I would just say arcade culture in general. I was going this way, and it just pivoted me and sent me off into a whole other direction. Because it was like the social element of gaming was there at the beginning. That's what I love about gaming is that it's gone through ups and downs and changes, and there was an online play, now there is online play. But what I love about it is from the very beginning, the heart, the core of gaming was social.
Oh, yeah.
It was going into that arcade and meeting other real people in the real world who loved something just as much as you did, and then putting your quarter down and seeing who was best at it. Like, competition, camaraderie, all of that. It was right there from the beginning. And it's crazy to me that it took so long for it to make it full circle back to that, to where Xbox Live launched, and they're like, you know what, we're going to create the virtual arcade now. And it's a shame it took that long. I mean, obviously technology was a big part of it and everything. But that's one thing I love about this industry is that the core concepts and the tenets of it were there right from the start.
Yeah, there's an element of the arcade culture that has never quite been duplicated still.
No, it never
I remember the one I used to go to.
Just the smell of the arcade.
Yeah. That's the funny thing. I'll recommend this one to you. Have you ever been to the Fox Hills Mall down Sepulveda?
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Near the airport?
Yeah.
If you park, you can park like at the upper level, like you turn down the street, go down the upper level, park in the upper level, and go through. It's like automatic doors that go out and take you out right next to the Cinnabon near Target. As you walk towards and into those doors, it smells exactly like an 80s arcade. And
I can still remember the smell.
And I will always go through that door to smell that.
I can remember the smell like it's yesterday.
Yep.
Like, I'm sure as soon as it wafts out of there, you're like, whoa.
Yep. I'm right back in Gold Mine
It's almost crazy
in Fashion
how
Island.
The sense of smell is, for me, is one of the easiest things to remember.
That's because your olfactory sensors are right next to one of the key memory formation
It's
centers.
insane. But anyway, I think...
And the other thing I remember, it's just like things you don't have an equivalent of now. Where like the arcade I used to go to was in this like really seedy part of downtown.
They always were.
And like the guy who owned it was this guy named Leaf, and he was kind of like, I guess you'd kind of say he was like John Candy, almost a big jolly man.
Yeah.
And he'd come in periodically. He didn't work there, but he owned it. And periodically he'd come in and play Bubble Bobble. His favorite game was Bubble Bobble. And everybody would gather around to watch Leaf play Bubble Bobble because he was really good at it.
We had a guy that played Tempest at our arcade.
He would one credit finish it every single time, and everybody would just go, "Oh, Leaf's playing." It was like, Morpheus is fighting Neo.
That's the way it was. Though, you're right.
And like he would play it, and it got to the point where every single power up he would pick up had like a call and response thing to the group playing. So like he'd pick up like the little jingle bell thing, and the whole group would sing, "We've got Spurs, that jingle jangle jingle." Like the whole arcade would like join in. Like when I watched Cheers when I was a kid growing up, like Cheers reminded me of that arcade because everyone, Leaf would come in and we'd be like, "Leaf," it was a total, and it was like, Leaf was like 40,
you had legends in your town. Like we had one guy who was so good at Tempest. When he walked in, everyone quit playing what they were playing and watched him play Tempest.
Yep.
We had other people who could come in and like beat like Miss Pac-Man on one quarter, and they'd show up, you just stand around and watch.
Or one of the other big memories
Space
was
Ace in games like those games that cost $1.
People who were only adults who could afford to play them, and then you just watch them.
Like people who were good at Dragon's Lair.
Yeah.
If they came into the arcade, people were like, "Whoa," because they're like, "I can't afford to play this, but this guy will put in $1 and he'll play through the whole thing, and I'll get to see all of Dragon's Lair." Like it was awesome.
And the big event where like
really
a new game that everybody was waiting for would come in, and at this place they would. They're all against the walls, but when a new one came in, they'd put it right in the middle, and they'd get extension cords and plug it in. They did that with Gauntlet and Rampage and a bunch of those, like the big classics, the big and Ninja Turtles and all the big, and Simpsons, all the big
X-Men.
multiplayer classics. And like you'd come in and there was this thing was right in the middle, this giant crowd was around, and like you'd be like,
it's the new game
behind it, and, like sitting around the corner, like looking at it like that. I still to this day remember the first day Gauntlet showed up, first day Rampage showed up, like because you'd never seen it before. before. You'd never seen them move before. You'd only seen screenshots, if that.
You never even saw that.
And if all of a sudden this thing was right there, and everybody, and you had to wait, and like quarters were all up on this. You know, that's the thing I missed too. Is like quarters being up.
The sound of the quarter on the glass, clack, clack, clack.
And now, there was a time I was playing at arcade a couple of years ago, and like somebody came over and put like a hairpin up. I'm like, what does that mean? Is that like
my spot, bro?
Does that mean you're next, or does you just didn't want it anymore? The quarter is a much easier.
It is, yeah.
But you can't play anything for a quarter
anyway,
anymore.
I think we're droning on about our old days in the arcade, maybe. But to answer your question, yeah, the arcades I think were formative for both of us and changed our lives, and we could go on and on about a number of games that were there.
Which I don't know if that was the question, because it was more like one specific game kind of doing it, but it's like. The video game thing is inextricable from like kind of the life experience for me, but it wasn't any one specific game that did that. It was the events and results surrounding them.
For sure. All right, so that's going to do it for GameFace Freestyle Episode 3. Who knows when we'll do another episode like this? Like, probably not till next year.
Yeah, next time Sam leaves town, basically.
Which will probably be the holidays, which we'll be leaving town anyway. So this may be your last taste of this format for quite a while. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. I think it's been refreshing for us to do a few episodes this way.
It covers a lot.
Yeah, we get to talk about a lot more topics. Also, consequently, you guys are probably wondering where GIFE is. Well, the reason GIFE hasn't been happening is because...
That's basically this.
We've been doing, like, every topic in GameFace for the last few weeks. So GIFE will be coming back as well. I just want to remind you guys to be very safe over Labor Day weekend. Do not drink and drive. Uber is way too cheap to drink and drive these days, people. And if not, find a designated driver. Make sure you keep it safe. Have fun, though. Eat tons of awesome food. Spend lots of time with awesome people. And as a reminder, we will be AFK on Monday, Labor Day, doing the very same thing. So everybody have a safe, restful, and fun Labor Day weekend. GameFace Freestyle is up and out.